The lights are off and away they go.
Extremely loose. He's managed to hold on.
He missed the complete. That is crazy
Side by
stuff.
side, Freitas is on the grass on the infield floor. He slides through. He tags Richard Eck.
Masters of cuisine, cinema, romance, and sometimes the world forgets that the French are also immense gearheads too. But when the summer rolls around, the sleepy town of Le Mans reminds everyone that racing is a huge part of French heritage. And fittingly, today the Autobahn series runs its longest race of the season at this classic French track. Much like the 24 Hours of Le Mans, it'll take strategy, a little guts, and a lot of luck to win today's contest. We'll find out who has all three as we get ready to watch round 9 of the Autobahn Motorcar Group Sportscar Challenge. And you'll see it all live on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Soup and Sandwiches once again. Bill Soup Zahn on the prototypes and GT1 cars, and Samuel Sandwiches Ryman covering the GT3s. Sam, the Circuit de la Sarthe has certainly been popular since it was brought to the iRacing service. Tell us what it offers up today.
Well, it offers a lot of turns and a lot of miles and a lot of racing today, Joe. We see the map here, just how many corners there are around this 8.47 mile circuit. There are 33 turns in total, although I'm sure the drivers don't exactly count them. They actually know a lot of them by their names, the different chicanes as well as the curves that make up a circuit, and we're going to get to know them quite well too with a 2.4 hour race today. That's going to be 2 hours and 24 minutes, which is actually only going to be about 40 laps around here. That is how large this circuit is. Let's give you an idea of the size of this place with our GSRC lap guide.
Alright, we've got Amjad Yaman in the GSRC BMW, so let's do a lap around the Circuit de la Sarthe. First, we'll fly down the imposing start-finish straight with its huge grandstands and buildings. Thankfully, the track has been widened a lot since its very early days. Up next is the Dunlop curve, which can't quite be taken flat out if you're hitting the line right. A little lift sets you up for the Dunlop chicane, which is tighter and slower than it looks. That then brings you over the crest and under the famous Dunlop Bridge for the Chapel Rundown. Hold to the right to give yourself the best entry into the Forest S's. The first half has a lot of banking, but the right-hander dumps into a crest. Be wary of being too eager on the power because the car can get away from you. Then, it's a short burst to Tertre Rouge. Getting on the power as soon as possible is going to be so important out of this right-hand flick, because other than the Antares, it's going to be a long straight shot to the first chicane. In fact, since it's flat out for so long, let's skip ahead. You can brake pretty deep for the Forza chicane, but you've got to be careful not to compromise your corner exit. The paved runoff should save you from most of your mistakes, but it's still not going to make for a happy time. Expect overtakes to happen coming into and out of the chicane. Fast forwarding once again, make sure and have your brake marker picked out for the second big braking event on this stretch, then throw out the anchor. The Michelin chicane is almost a mirror image of the first one, and just like before, the corner exit is all important. From there, the Mulsanne kink brings us to within sight of the Mulsanne corner. We're going to skip ahead to that, where you can see it's not a straight shot into the braking zone. The addition of the roundabout in the 80s has made it all the more tricky slowing the car up into this tight 90-degree bend. Don't be afraid to straddle that outside curb on the exit. Every little bit of momentum will be useful, so take the track to its limits. Yet again, let's chop off a long portion of straight and show you the entry to Indianapolis. This right-hand kink requires you to turn in and brake at the same time. Bring the car back across the track and use the banking as much as you can. Tuck it right down to that apex, then switch sides after you swing it out. Arnage is a deceptively slow bend that invites you to enter far too hot. There's very little runoff to the outside, so it's not uncommon to see cars make contact with the wall here. The car then blasts its way towards the Porsche curves, which reside at the end of this flat-out section. As you enter, bring the car far to the left and use the turn to help scrub off speed. Hold tight to the right, and from there, it starts to feel a little like a street course with that blue wall to the outside of the bridge corners. These then bring you into karting, where things get much slower. Once again, tuck the car all the way to the right because you need the best line into the left-hander. Even though the outside is paved, going wide will hurt because you'll get a slowdown penalty. From there, you'll fly through the right-left of Maison Blanche, which literally translates to White House, and then it's time for the Ford chicane. This first half is pretty fast, but you want to keep the car settled so that you can brake for the second half. Things get really tight now that the track rejoins the Bugatti circuit. Try to both stay off those tall curves and keep it out of the gravel. From there, we've now finished a lap around the Circuit de la Sarthe. Amjad Yaman taking us around here, certainly not slow like Escargot. And of course, also not slow like a snail would be Bill Zahn to take us through a quick lap around the points championship.
Yep, after rounds 7 and 8 in Italy, the European swing continues to France, home of the Eiffel Tower. So with that in mind, let's get an eyeful of the points overlays. When it comes to France, you can't help but thinking about cheese, and the same is true when looking at the prototype driver standing. John Big Cheese Ulmer has fallen out of a tie for the lead into third, but the Autobahn Motorsports West driver is only 5 back of Itosh's Jason Girard. Between those two sits Talon Motorsports' Bob the Blade Tinsey. Now, Girard, Tinsey, and Ulmer claimed all the wins until Daniel Benefield showed up to steal a win last time out at Imola. With 2 podiums this season, Alex Simonik of ClanOAD.net sits in 4th. Rounding out the overlay and still looking for his first podium is Daniel Gralti of SRN Motorsports. One of the biggest holidays in France is Bastille Day, that commemorates the storming of the Bastille and turning to the points and turning a turning point for the French Revolution. And now, a driver who has stormed onto the GT1 championship is Jacek Swierdowicz. The Polish privateer has 3 wins this season, but none in the last 3 events. Doing his best to stay close, just 15 points back of the defending GT1 champion, is Stephen McGarvey of TMC Carbon. Billy Smith has a pair of second-place finishes, and the Autobahn West driver moves up a spot to 3rd. Falling out of a tie for 2nd is Paul Oh My Darling, now in 4th, ahead of Talon's Brandon Postma, who moves up a spot to 5th. Now, as mentioned earlier, the series has moved from Italy to France, just like Da Vinci's Mona Lisa, which was painted in Florence and now hangs in the Louvre. No one is really sure what the Mona Lisa is smiling at, but if she was a fan of the AMGSC, sorry about that, she could be smiling at Laurel Costa's success in the GT3 Championship. The Brazil privateer has the highest point total of any driver at 207. 28 points back is Rainier Racing's Bradley Haley. Haley picked up his only win at Sebring, and just after Dave Hill in TMC Carbon picked up his only win at Mosport. Autobahn's East driver Sheldon Rosenbaum has a 2nd, 3rd, and a pair of 4th in his last 4 races, and now just 3 points behind Hill. TMC Carbon's Robert Jackman rounds out the podium. But when it comes to France, one man comes to mind, and that is Napoleon, a man who took an army and nearly ruled all of Europe. And there is an army of drivers trying to rule the team championship, and that team, of course, is Talon Motorsports. The Autobahn West team is 30 points back in 2nd, with TMC Carbon 42 back of the top spot. Once dominating the championship was Itosh Motorsports, but recently that team has rebounded after their Waterloo low of 5th place last round. They're now up a spot to 4th. So rounding out the podium is Autobahn, the East team on that one. And now, like they say here in Le Mans, durez tout à vous, Joseph.
This is bad because I studied German, so I have no idea what you said. Let's go to someone who grew up just across the way from France, Sam. This place is a pretty long lap, so I have to imagine there's going to be a fair few passing places that drivers, if they wanted to overtake.
Yeah, well, you've seen some right here as you see these cars travel down the Mulsanne Straight. We have a couple of chicanes nowadays that break this straightaway up. It used to just be one long straight until they realised that the cars were getting fast and that was getting a little bit dangerous. As a matter of fact, the car we're watching on track here, though, Matt Owens, wasn't on the Mulsanne Straight. I was mistaken about that. But even here on these twistier parts of the circuit, as you come towards the end of a lap, the track is still open, Joe, and there's still enough speed that it should be passing opportunities. There's definitely plenty around here, but the big thing that the drivers are going to be really pleased about, especially coming off of Imola at our last race, is that there's going to be places to pass for the faster traffic cars, the HPDs over the GT1s, the GT1s over the GT3s. Hopefully we won't see as many near incidents as what we did 2 weeks ago down in Imola.
Yeah, Imola, a lot more cramped than this place. Now, we do have some recent news that has happened that one of the drivers up at the front of the prototypes, Daniel Benefield, is going to be getting a penalty for aggressive driving at Imola. Now, he was going to get a drive-through penalty during this race. However, he has been given permission by the race stewards to start from pit lane instead and take that as his penalty. Knowing that, Bill, And from what we saw from Daniel at Imola with his speed and what we knew of him from his great wins last season in the Autobahn series, do you think he has a chance at coming back for the win, or do you think that's thrown out the window with this penalty?
2 hours and 24 minutes, plenty of time for Benefield to make his way through the field. Yeah, you got some big names in there. Gerard is here, Tinsley's here, Omer is here. They're all big. Simonik is here as well. All the guys you expect to be here. But from what I saw last time out at Imola, yeah, I think he'll have no problem getting through the field in that amount of time. Look for him to be showing up maybe in the last 15-20 minutes of this race.
He'll have his challenge set before him, that's for sure. Now, we've seen a dominant force up at the top of the GT3, Sam, with Costa really coming to form. He was already on pretty good form, finishing in first and second place in every round he showed up in the first half of the season. But now he's gotten 3 wins in a row. Is there anything that can stop Costa?
Well, I'd like to think so. I mean, we definitely have other drivers in the class, most notable of which I think throughout the season has been Bradley Haley, but Haley's just hit bad luck at points. And this isn't something I thought we would be saying at any point during this season, Joe, that we'd see a driver taking 3 wins in a row and extending his points lead over Bradley Haley now, as Bill mentioned, to 28 points. However, the fact of the matter is Costa really is doing a good job at getting his act together, and even though this is a competitive class, he's a driver who seems to do well in these longer races, so of course it's really good news for him today.
Certainly, he has excelled with his strategy, and that is going to be all the more important here at the longest race of the season. 2 hours and 24 minutes that they will be competing. And we should point out, they are racing for double points today. This is an extra important race in the championship. You really want results today. And also, of course, could make that penalty if it hurts Daniel Benefield all the more painful. Granted, he's not necessarily in the championship, having only had his first race of the season last round, but I'm sure he'd like to climb up through the points. So, we haven't talked about the GT1s quite yet, except for Bill's summary early on. So, Bill, one of the things that I noticed is that as I looked at the points for Sviatovic, he's got the lead by 15 points, but he's kind of had a bit of a stumble recently.
Yeah, he had 3 wins in a row earlier in the season. He hasn't got a win in the last 3 races. Today we're looking at, this is interesting, we see Troy Schuster. There's a name that was dominant in this series the last couple of seasons. Haven't heard much from him. The guy that's interesting right now, sitting about 8th in qualifying in the class, is Billy Smith. He's been horrible at qualifying all season long. I gotta think it's just a bit of lack of practice, because he's a lot better driver than his qualifying times are showing. I'm thinking with this long race, look for him to get this car figured out, and by the last hour, he'll know what he's got under him. Look for him to be competitive at the end.
And, you know, that's an interesting point, Bill, because I had forgotten about his notorious qualifying sessions back when he ran the Cadillac when they had the GTD class here in this series. Remember, he used to show up, do essentially 1 lap, and put it on the pole in a single lap. So, yeah, I wonder if maybe he's just getting in late, like you said, not really getting in the practice he needs, and that's what's hindering him with the steeper talent that we're seeing in the series now, 4 seasons on since we first started covering this thing. About 30 seconds left in qualifying, only a couple laps out, or couple cars, out on track. So as they finish up their hot laps, I believe we should be pretty safe to start going through the field. Checking with our director. Yes, we are good to go. So let's tell you how this is going to be. Jason Gerard on the pole, of course, and Daniel Benefield, you see him qualified in second, but as we said, he is starting from the pit lane, so he will not start the race from that position. Robert Tinsley will start in third. He will not be bumped up into second from that penalty. John Ulmer will start in fourth, followed by the start of the third row with Alex Simonik, who's been on pretty decent form lately. Dino Topic, hoping to make up for his race last round, has not had the greatest of seasons, has expressed a little bit of disappointment in that, starting 6th today. Let's see if he can do better. Daniel Gralty will be 7th, with Mark Schindel beginning 8th. Then it's Jimbo Pfeiffer, who will be starting in 9th, and Mark Wilson rounding out the top 10. Lionel Duprat will start the race in 11th, Chris Pence in 12th, and then Sean Reese will round out the prototypes in 13th.
In 14th in the GT1s, recapturing a little past glory, it's going to be Troy Schuster. In just ahead of the defending champion Stephen McGarvey. Points leader Wojciech Sujetovic back there in 16th spot. In third, Leif Peterson and Carter Kundinger are the two drivers behind him. How about Ryan Huff sitting about 6th in qualifying? Brandon Postma, who's made the overlay now, sitting back there 20th overall. We talked about Billy Smith sitting back in 21st position overall. David Sockrider and Paul Lindsay round out the last two cars in the GT1. Sam?
Yeah, and then we get to GT3s. Qualifying just finished with Robert Drachman crossing the line. Laura Costa is on pole there, ahead of Bradley Haley, two drivers who have had a lot of pace throughout the season. Patrick Fleming and Dave Hill in the Ford GT there, 4th on the grid, ahead of Paul Darling and Robert Drachman, who, as I said, just turned a lap. He improved his time, but not his position. Will start 6th place there, ahead of Sheldon Rosenbaum and Jim McInnes. Armando Edwards and Michael Reedy round out the top 10 in GT3. Then we get Miguel Meyer, Sheldon Woloshin, Matt Owens in the Ford GT. David Hedder and Kevin Santana did not turn laps in qualifying, and it looks like Dino Topic has just lost the internet connection, Joe, so I hope he gets back into the race before we get the green flag here.
I'm not sure if he's going to have enough time unless he's got a very quick computer that he can turn around here, less than a minute and a half before he has to get the car to the grid. And as we wait for them to grid, let's go through our tradition. Bill, who's your pick today?
Well, we talked about it. Let's go ahead and see if Daniel Benefield can come from the back of the pack. That'll be fun to watch. And then I do like, believe it or not, Billy Smith the second, starting way back to get his first win.
Interesting call. Sam?
I'm going to go with Laura Costa. He's got the last 3 wins in a row, and I've got no reason to believe that he won't do otherwise. However, I apologise in advance, Laura, because I also picked Will Power to win the Indy 500 and Chase Elliott to win the Coke 600, and they both got involved in incidents.
All right, so not the news that he probably wanted to hear. Hopefully he's not listening to the broadcast.
Well, Joe, the F1 news is a bit better, but I know you haven't watched that race yet, so I'm not going to spin that up.
That's a good thing I'm not watching the chat, because now that you mentioned that, I'm sure there'll be people saying stuff over there. And anyways, as the cars continue to try to get to the grid here, they're waiting on Dino to show back up. He'll be the last car to grid. If he does not, when it counts down to 0, he will start from the pit lane. And the time is quickly running out for that HPD to be able to show back up. And I'm still nuts.
He's the only car not on the grid right now, Joe, beside Paul Darling. And even though Paul Darling is in the session, I've noticed he's been going in and out of a session. I don't know if he might be having some issues on his end too. Internet
connection issues, the worst fear of many a sim racer. Obviously, if you're not used to sim racing, your internet connection can cause your car to blink, and that can make it difficult to race as close as you need with the cars around you. They are rolling off now, which means that we are going to get the traditional Le Mans fighter jets, their Air Force flying overhead. So they should show up here soon. Maybe they've been grounded with the clouds. Not sure if iRacing actually models that.
Maybe.
All right, we'll try and keep our ears open, although we won't really have to keep them too wide open for them to show up. We'll bring the cameras back to there. Could be that maybe iRacing actually doesn't have the planes if it's overcast. That'll be really interesting if they went that far. Jason Girard can lead the way after floundering at Imola. Let's see if he can find his form once again here at the French track of the Circuit de la Sarthe and get himself another win, get his run back on track for his championship hopes as they work their way through the Porsche curves, now coming through karting.
And Joe, notice that Benefield is not in the pits. Looks like he's going to take that drive-through after all.
Did he actually line up on the grid?
He's out there.
He did.
I'm showing him, behind the pace car right now.
Interesting. Wonder if that is a calculated move, if he figured out that he would lose less time running through, which I wouldn't think would be the case. This is a long pit lane.
This gives them a whole lap to maybe distance themselves from some of the guys.
This is true, too. Although I'm not sure how much he could gap this field in a lap, especially with the draft helping. There we go. Now the Jets are coming overhead as the tricolor streaks over and the pace car peels in, and Daniel Benefield is taking his drive-through right now, actually, I can tell you.
That's how you do it.
wonder if he got permission for that. The green flag waves, and I think there was a bit of a check up there for our leader. Bit of a spin from one of the HPDs behind. That is Mark Wilson, who gets it back going as they work their way towards the Dunlop chicane.
It was Wilson and Jimbo Pfeiffer that got together.
Pretty much single file through there. Let's go to the GT1s.
Troy Schuster gets a nice jump out. Dropping into second is McGarvey. He's being challenged by Swiatovic. Swiatovic not going to be able to do it. He's going to lock into third. Kundinger in fourth, and Leif Peterson as they work their way into the first corner. Sam?
GT3 field just coming through the final chicane now. Lauro Costa on the low pedal gets off to a nice jump. Bradley Haley filters into line ahead of Patrick Fleming there in third place. Dave Hill in the Ford GT in fourth. And Robert Drachman in fifth, given the fact that Paul Darling is starting from the pits.
Oh, and some significant news. Jason Girard going very slow. He must have got a slowdown penalty through Tertre Rouge, as that's going to hand it over to Robert Tinsey, and he loses a number of places down the Mulsanne straight.
Going to tuck in behind Daniel Gralte in about sixth position.
That is going to be painful. Remember, this is a double points race for these drivers today. If he has to climb up through the field and loses time on trying to run Tinsey down, that is going to hurt him in the championship.
That moves them that much closer to Benefield, and of course with Dino Topic not in there, that's one more car that Benefield doesn't need to get around.
Oh, and we have a driver missing the second chicane. Daniel Gralte blows the Michelin chicane. And we're hearing some talk about maybe trying to clear a black flag.
And it's been done for Jason Girard. It always seems weird, Joe, these longer races where all the drivers are told to be calm and courteous early on because it's a long race. Boy, we're off to a wild start in HPD here.
Absolutely, as we saw a little bit of a battle there. I believe that was Ulmer and Simonik. That's for second place. Simonik still right behind him, trying to use the draft. He looks to the inside, down towards Indianapolis. Tries to squeeze his nose in. They're going to go side by side through the kink on the entry. Ulmer holds the inside down into the left-hander. Uses the banking and holds him off for now.
Our GT3 leader has got a slowdown penalty. Lauro Costa drops back to fifth position behind Robert Drachman. New leader Bradley Haley as they come down the Mulsanne straight.
That's two leaders on the first lap with a slowdown penalty. Huge impact here on the race with both of those cars finding themselves sinking down the order. And we're hearing some words from Jimbo Pfeiffer over the radio apologizing in case he had any impact on that spin from Wilson at the start. Let's see if we can see if he did. Don't know if we caught that one on camera. I certainly wasn't able to see it since I was half watching Benefield going through. Here we go. Oh, yeah, I'd say there was some contact clattering over the curb. So Pfeiffer back in ninth currently as we watch the onboard. Oh, yeah, definite contact there. Currently got Sean Reese just ahead of him in 8th position. Let's check in on the GT1 since we haven't looked at them since the drop of the green. Troy Schuster currently leading the way there.
Well, actually, Joey, Troy Schuster just got passed, but it wasn't for position as Daniel Benefield has made his way through the GT3s and the GT2s. Now he's just got the prototypes ahead of him. Schuster has really opened it up on McGarvey. Swiatovic still back there in third position. Kundinger giving him a run for his money, though. So they're going to come up here across the start-finish line any second. Running in fifth, it's Peterson.
Carter, one of the newer drivers, same thing with Swirly. Oh, and Carter loses it down into the Dunlop chicane. Stays out of the cars coming through, but loses multiple positions. That looked like driver error to me in live. Let's see here on the replay.
Yeah, Swirly got loose, did a half spin, and then they looped it around a 180 and turned it around. He's losing a ton of positions, too. I think we can probably just stay on the same replay. Watch this as we go to the driver running in third position.
Into the Forest S's, and Jess has the rear come around on him. I'm almost curious if these conditions are maybe a little bit cold for these tires. They're not warmed up yet.
I think that's a very real possibility, Joe. 82 degrees track temperature. Now, the good news for these drivers that do get involved in incidents early on, they do get one free repair. However, you don't want to use that too early in case you get involved in something later on. Also, the incident limit has been raised for this race because it's a longer race. It's 57 incident points. If you hit that, you have problems.
Let's go to 16th overall. Billy Smith has just made his way around Ryan Huff. Now, if I count up, I believe he's running fourth in class now. There it is. Did not take him long to get going.
Boy, that was a smart call there on that one, Bill. As Ryan Huff tries to fight back, but backs out by the time they come up to the braking of the Michelin chicane. Going to want to get him a good run out of this slow series of left, right, left. And there actually doesn't get that great of a traction out of the chicane. So Billy Smith is safe and actually is able to start focusing on Leif Peterson up next, possibly trying to get himself onto the podium before this lap is over.
Yeah, well, when you have two cars spin in front of you, Sidordovic and Kundinger, makes it a little easier for you, but he's got a couple on the track.
Position's a position.
Three wide for third in GT3. Lauro Costa trying to make his way back up through the field as they come down the Mulsanne straight. He is alongside the Ford GT of Dave Hill, who loses a position ahead of Robert Drachman in the Mercedes car. Now, unless I'm mistaken, Robert Drachman is a new driver to the Mercedes. I think he's done a few races in Ford GT this season. Off to a very nice debut for the Mercedes, if that is the case here. Running fifth in class, sinking about fourth from Dave Hill.
Looks to the inside as they come up to the Mulsanne corner. The kink on entry going to make it difficult. He decides to back out of it. Lives to fight another day. And for those wondering, they are allowed to change makes of cars within the same class, but once, I believe. After that, if I understand correctly, they are given a points penalty for each time they change cars. Now, if we could drop back just a little bit to Sheldon Rosenbaum behind them, how about some credit to Sheldon, who is doing very well into the championship, despite, I believe, he's only gotten one podium so far, if my stats are correct.
Yeah, sitting in fourth, and only 3 points back of being in third, right behind Dave Hill. And I don't think Dave Hill is here today.
Yeah, Dave Hill's in front of him. He's
there he is.
Fourth place. Uh-oh, trouble. Armando Edwards.
Had his spin coming through, I believe that was Indianapolis, as he gets it turned around. Let's look at the replay. Into the kink he goes, as we watch from the chopper. And it looks like, maybe onto the power a little too eager.
Could be that cold temperatures we're talking about again, Joe. And one thing, of course, with this being a 2 hour and 24-minute race, you'd think that these drivers would change tyres during the race. Some drivers are talking about not changing tyres just due to the fact that it costs so much time, and B, the cooler temperatures.
Well, meanwhile, but just behind this battle, Jason Girard got past Mark Schindel, and that was for fourth position. But what we're watching on screen is Ulmer and Simonik.
Yeah, Alex is all over John right now. He has been coming all season long. Simonik has just been getting better and better, and now...
Actually, Simonik's ahead.
He's got it. Oh, he made the pass. He did it while he was behind a tree on my camera. Look at that. Oh, I'm hearing maybe Ulmer might have had a penalty.
That could be. It sounds like you're right. He's talking to some of the other drivers. Sounds like he had gotten a slowdown and did not serve it enough.
16-second hold is what I heard out of his mind.
That is gonna hurt. And John has been in the hunt for the championship since the start of this season, essentially. Has been doing very well. And I know I keep harping on it, but a double points race, every mistake that these drivers make hurts doubly so.
He said he had Alex Simonik right behind him. He tried to get over, but I guess it was too late, was his answer. So, yeah, that's costly. So move Alex up to second now.
Lauro Costa in GT3 has dropped back to fifth place. He got up to third last lap, but had to serve another slowdown penalty at the end of last lap. Dropped him back to fifth. He's got to pass those cars in front of him again.
These slowdown penalties are proving incredibly costly. And for our viewers wondering where they are getting these, Le Mans is a bit of a unique track on iRacing in that the outsides of corners, since they're paved, can have slowdown penalties if you use parts of the track that are not considered in bounds. We're going to see a good example here with Fleming. That those cones that you saw on the entry there on these chicanes are one of the parts where if you go outside of the cones, it will give you a slowdown.
Yeah, Fleming had a good performance last race, Joe, getting back on the podium at Imola, having another good race here, second, right, tucked up right behind Bradley Haley.
And I suspect Fleming is part of the reason why we're seeing Itasha come back to the fore. Remember, he's been gone for a while this season. Now that he's back, he's bringing points in. We understand that there's a battle in 15th position, though.
Yeah, and now we're going to see. We're hearing some news that Kungdinger has had an incident. Let's see if I can find that. I'm not seeing it. Oh, we have it. Our director has found it.
This was in Indianapolis. He was trying to trail Swirly. Oh, he was way wide into there. Both of them very wide. Target fixation?
Yeah. Look at the big names who's had trouble. There's Swirly having trouble, Kundinger having trouble. He's a quality driver. Then in the prototypes, you've had issues with Ulmer has had a problem, as well as Gerard. My goodness.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out why Ulmer, we just saw him coming into the pits. It's only lap 3. I'm wondering, Joe... Okay, so it is part of the slowdown penalty he's having to serve.
Or his lack of serving, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he was doing. He pulled into his spot, he backed up and pulled into it again. So that was unusual. He's back out now. Unfortunately, I believe he is now in last place in class as... excuse me, Dino Topic is last. Is he out on track? Yes, he is. So Dino is out there, but he's 2 laps down from our leaders. I don't think he's in this race, really, at this point.
Okay, let's jump back to 16th position now. We were looking, Billy Smith was in this battle earlier. He's pulled away, but this is a nice little battle. This is Peterson and Ryan Huff. We don't get a lot of love to Ryan Huff out there. He's having a good race right now, running 5th in class.
They work their way onto the Mulsanne straight. All 3 of them pretty close together, and Billy Smith seems to have gotten a slowdown. He's going very slowly down the straight. This is going to hand it easily over to Peterson, who streaks by.
And is Huff going to get him too? I think he finally got his serve, so Billy Smith down to 4th.
We ride on board with Huff through the chicane. Can he get himself a run off the corner? Oh, he gets great traction, tucks right up underneath Billy Smith. Wonder if the draft is going to be strong enough for him to attempt something into the Michelin chicane. Closes in inch by inch. Is he going to take it? No, he decides to back out of it.
I think it was kind of hard for him to get there because I think Smith was having it in a good tow from Peterson, so Huff was really flying.
Continuing on through, up and over the hump. Used to be much taller. Caused cars a few problems with what little downforce they have to have for these long straights, and Billy Smith is going to get himself a run on Peterson. Looks to the inside, down into the kink of the Mulsanne corner. Both of them trying to throw the anchors out. Billy Smith hits the apex nice and clean and gets great traction off of the corner on the run down to Indianapolis to leave Peterson behind to deal with Huff.
All this taking place behind Schuster and McGarvey, who have distanced themselves quite easily.
Fans of Daniel Benefield, he's just overtaken Sean Reese, and that moves him into 9th overall. In fact, I think he's about to get another.
That's Mark Wilson, yep.
Wilson's not doing too bad considering that early spin. Granted, he's had a few cars fall by the wayside. Just lost one of those to Benefield, who is now into 8th. Up next is going to be Jimbo Pfeiffer. Bit of a run there. Going to be 6 seconds up the road to reach Jimbo.
But keep in mind, he's already gotten around John Ulmer. So
Paul Lindsay's having something of interest happening. What's going on over? Oh!
Was that Arnage maybe that happened in?
Ooh, oh, no, this was Indianapolis. Wow.
There.
That had to be scary, starting to lose it on the entry into Indianapolis, and I'm sure he's thankful for that runoff.
Our battle for third place continues in GT3. Dave Hill passing Robert Jackman, Lauro Costa trying to follow through. He's going to back out of it. Joe, these three drivers have been very aggressive early on, and I'm trying to work out why, because each time one of them gets in front, they're not really closing up, I think, to the two in front of them. I think they're really wasting time by doing this, but not only that, they're wasting fuel. Even if the guy in front of you is slower, just stay behind him, run the gas half throttle down the Mulsanne straight, and maybe you can jump them in the pits. As we talk about the pits, Cundin into the pits.
Not sure if this is a scheduled stop as we continue to watch this battle here between some of our GT3 leaders working their way now through the Porsche curves. And Sam, you were talking about this with one of the drivers before the race as well, that fuel could be a bit of a concern with it being a little bit of a high-use track.
Yeah, well, absolutely it could with those long straights down the backside of the circuit, that we're going to use more fuel than usual. Now, of course, if the drivers know what their fuel window is, that's not a concern whatsoever. They can plan out their strategy. The thing is, if they're right on the cusp of making it on 3 stops as opposed to 4 stops, we'll have to wait and see if anyone will save fuel and play that strategy card. We'll find out in about 4 laps time, I think, when we approach the first round of pit stops.
Pole sitter Lauro Costa still not able to make any inroads on Jackman and Hill as they continue to fight here for this third position, that podium spot. They complete yet another lap. GT3 car is expected to make about 35 laps today in this 2 hours and 24 minutes. Understand that 4th place has been having quite a battle. I did see them a little bit earlier. That's Mark Schindel and Daniel Gralti. They're working their way through the Porsche curves as well. Round through a bridge where that blue wall is just right there ready to capture you if you push it too hard.
These guys started in the 7th and 8th positions respectively and have just vultured those spots. Racing very clean so far.
Currently, Gralti not quite close enough to Schindel as they hit the Ford chicane. Cars slowing down through these double left-rights, and now back onto the main straight with the towering stands on either side, this time much closer for Gralti with a great run out of the final corner coming up to the Dunlop curve. Doesn't look like he's quite brave enough as they hit the Dunlop chicane. Stays in line up through here. Now through the Forest S as they go, plunging downhill. Heavy banking on these corners to help them through, and then that big hump on the exit of here through the right-hander, having to keep traction through Tertre Rouge, one of the most important corners on the track, trying to get the traction down to the wheels. And Mark Schindel proving once again very handy with his right foot coming out of the corner, keeping himself safe from Daniel Gralti and holding on to that 4th spot.
Can I quickly give a shout out to the drivers 6th and 7th in GT3? Somehow they have worked their way halfway up through the class. Kevin Santana and Paul Darlin. Let's not forget, Paul Darlin started from the pits, whereas Kevin Santana started last on the grid. And they are closing in on the top 5 in class.
Another battle I kind of want to check in on here. Billy Smith, Ryan Huff, and Leif Peterson still have not separated, and they've got some interesting traffic coming through in the form of Dino Topic, who's being very patient, trying not to break this up.
The last time I checked on it, Billy Smith had dropped back behind those 3 guys, and sure enough, it's still there. That Huff has gotten around him.
And Dino having to go way wide to try and get by Billy Smith, sneaks through the inside of Huff, through the Dunlop chicane. He's cleared 2 of them, but just look at how much that has separated Huff from Peterson. It's brought back a little bit.
Yeah, another development in GT3. Don't have to go to it, but Lauro Costa has finally worked his way back up into third place this lapping class. Paul Lindsay in the pits.
Let's look at Robert Jackman. He just made contact. It just happened maybe 15, 20 seconds ago. He made contact with Kundinger, who just dive bombed into the corner. Looks like the Mulsanne hairpin.
No, that was Indianapolis. I think that happened. Was it?
It was Jackman got to... Well,
was it Jackman or Hill potentially here? We're looking at Hill on the replay. Let's see if we can see what happened to Hill in his Blue Jays Ford.
Well, yeah,
sure,
whatever
I guess we
happened,
can't find that one.
Kundinger comes into the pits.
Wasn't Kundinger in the pits recently, though? Actually,
He's been in a
I
couple
think it
times,
was,
yeah.
yeah.
He came in with 2 hours and 7 minutes to go, and then he's come in again. He's having some issues. He apologized for dive bombing into the corner.
Oh, we've got a car with a blown engine. Who is that pulling in? It's a Merc. It's Miguel Meyer. And he doesn't even take it to the pits, or maybe he just overshot that. Oh, he just overshot the chicane. I thought maybe he was deciding that he didn't need it. Let's see, is this a downshifting issue? No, it is not. That is a severe hit into a concrete barrier, a bare concrete barrier. Right on board on the replay. This is coming through bridge. Oh, interesting. Just lost the rear in bridge. Couldn't recollect it. And coming into karting, that car nosed itself into the hard concrete wall.
Yeah, this is Gerard has been running down Alex Simonik here in the prototypes. Little by little, he's got it down to, well, he's right there right now. In fact, he's in the draft. He's coming.
All right, he's caught Alex Simonik. Looks to the inside, coming up through the Mulsanne straight. They're approaching the Forza chicane, and Alex did not defend whatsoever, just lets him by. Wonder if he's going to try and ride his coattails. Now that Gerard has made it back to second after his first lap slowdown penalty, he is 4.3 seconds back from Tinsley. So he lost some time, Bill, but that's not insurmountable. Oh, and look at this. Is this a game of leapfrog? Are they working together?
That wouldn't surprise me. That's a great way to run up on Bob the Blade.
And Sheldon Miloshin has actually recently been lapped by Tinsley, so these guys are hitting lap traffic despite the length of this track. 2 hours to go at this point.
Let me report that Daniel Benefield got around Jimbo Pfeiffer, now up to 6th. Next on his hit list would be Mark Schindel.
That's going to be a long one to get to. He's got 12 seconds up to Schindel, who will mark the top 5 for Daniel.
Let me give that interval, though. 26 seconds back to from Tinsley to Benefield, so you can keep an eye on that here with 2 hours left to racing.
Sounds about right. Maybe losing about 30 seconds with that start as we see this back and forth between Simonik and Gerard continuing. They approach now the Indianapolis corner. Tight moments, though, with this lap traffic. That is Matt Owens, who gets out of the way. And if you're wondering, when a car off at Arnage, that is Simonik, who goes way wide, and that's going to allow Gerard to get back through. I can't tell, Bill, if this is teamwork or not.
You saw them going by the lap car of Matt Owens, as you mentioned there, one of 2 Ford GTs. Well, Ford executives might not be too happy at the moment right now, because Dave Hill, who had been running 5th in class, just dropped back to 6th behind the hard-charging Kevin Santana. That means there are now no Ford GTs in the top 5 in GT3.
Oh, and Hill is pitting. This could be scheduled, though. Car's going to make it about a half an hour, not quite on fuel here. And that is because they have limited fuel tanks in this series. Oh, and I see another car coming in. Alex Simonik heads into the pits.
Well, I think that answers the question if that was teamwork or not, because if it was teamwork, he wouldn't have come in.
And Tinsley is coming in. Significantly, Gerard stays out. Simonik comes in as well.
So that gives Gerard the lead.
Significantly, Joe, also, this is 26 minutes into a race. I have a feeling this is going to be more than a three-stopper.
Well, the real test will be Jason Gerard, who stays out one more lap. So does Mark Schindel. Daniel Gralty as well elects not to pit this lap. As we watch our first place overall driver now, Gerard, started on the pole if you're just joining us, but got a slowdown penalty on the very first lap, and that hurt him dearly. Just behind him, we saw him put a lap on Lauro Costa. Costa has worked his way into third in the GT3s, also after a slowdown, also started on the pole. And you can see Robert Tinsley has come out of the pits.
About 5 seconds back to Simonik. Oh, almost 6 seconds.
Tinsley, naturally our highest hitter out on the track at the moment. Let's check in with our GT1 leader because we haven't looked at him in quite a while. Troy Schuster still has a 5-second gap over McGarvey, but that is going to change right now because he comes into the pits.
And we'll see McGarvey is going to stay out. So we're going to get McGarvey leading a lap. Billy Smith has come in. He's up to third.
And Daniel Gralty has had contact with Sheldon Rosenbaum just recently. This is coming out of the Michelin chicane. I think we found the replay. And there it is right there. Woof. Just caught it.
Sheldon Rosenbaum had been running as high as 6th in class earlier, dropped back a little bit now, but still having a solid performance right now. He doesn't want to get involved in anything here, and now that they're on... Oh, wow, as they get close again. Now that they're on the long straight... Oh, I'm sorry, that was another replay. Now Gralty's got by him.
Yeah, that seemed to be a case of HPD trying to go the long way around and the GT3 not being aware that that was his intention. Just a little bit of miscommunication, which can happen in multi-class racing. You can see Gralty continuing on. I don't think the damage looks too bad on the front of that HPD, if he even touched him at all.
And if he did, he can fix it.
This is true, although you won't want to use it this early on in a 2.4-hour race. Now, Gerard is coming up not only on lap traffic, Lauro Costa, who he goes by, but our pit entrance. So, what is Jason going to do? Is he going to be able to go another lap, or is he coming in? He's coming in. Where is he going to come out in relation to Robert Tinsley? That's another question as well.
Gralty into the pits too.
Now, did we see whether or not Tinsley took tires?
Let me go back and see if I can check that out first.
Well, we'll let Bill check, Joe, but my guess would be no, given the fact we're still very early into the race.
It was a bit of a short stint for Tinsley, so I would agree that that would be my guess of his elected strategy, but you don't know as Gerard hits his box. Now they take fuel first and then tires second, if I'm not mistaken. They're not allowed to refuel and take tires at the same time, just like real life rules here at Le Mans.
Yeah, Tinsley did not take rubber. You guys were correct.
And Gerard did not either. He slowly comes out, but Tinsley's already through. Where is Simonik, though? Is he going to get Gerard? Just sneaks by. Moves Simonik back into second after the first rounds of pit stops. Jason Gerard slips back into third. Other drivers farther down in the HPD field have come in for their stop. Pfeiffer is in. Wilson is in. Duprat has reached his stall. Chris Pence is coming in now.
As HPD leaders pit, the GT3 leaders have stayed out on track. I guess they're not burning as much fuel. And I'll tell you right now that Kevin Santana, the Mercedes that has been making a charge, is now caught up with the back of Robert Jackman for 4th.
Santana's had the unique situation as he switched back and forth between classes, which you are allowed to do as much as you want in this series, of leading the AM Championship, I believe, in 2 different classes at one point. Seems a bit unfair if you ask me. If you lead one, you can't lead another.
Stephen McGarvey pitting from the lead in the GT1s. Schuster was the leader just going through the Porsche S's right now.
And that gap was significant enough, I expect Schuster should retake it back with ease.
Well, it's about 5 seconds, but then it depends on how they want to play their tires, if they take their same tire strategy at the same time.
There's Huff now coming in for his stop as well. Sviatovic also is in. Schuster's approaching the Ford chicane right now. Garvey is still stationary as Schuster works his way through that final chicane, coming up to the start-finish line to complete another lap. Garvey's now taking off, but it's a long run down to the cones, and Schuster is well through.
So this looks like it'll be a 4th stopper for these guys, pitting about 30 minutes into the race.
As we watch Schuster retake the lead in the GT1 class. If you're just joining us, welcome to the Autobahn Motorcar Group Sportscar Challenge here live on the Global Sim Racing channel. You're watching the special 2.4 hours of Le Mans here in this series, the longest race of their season. Robert Tinsley currently leading the way in the HPD's prototype class has seen quite a bit of intrigue. Penalties, slowdown penalties, drivers spinning. Major players, in fact, pretty much all of our major players, except for Tinsley, has had a problem this race. And we're only a half an hour in.
Half an hour in and I bring up my first Toyota reference of a race, Joe. Tinsley could have a flawless race. It ain't gonna be over until the checker calls. Oh, and Robert Jackman spins from 4th place in GT3. I think he was actually coming into the pits. Maybe lost control on pit entry.
That looks to be exactly the case. We'll see it on the replay here. You got 2 chicanes to go through in this pit entry. Woohoo! And you gotta practice them. Jackman may have practiced, but I don't think enough.
Every GT3 leader, bar Lauro Costa, came into the pits that time around.
Not a very varied strategy in the GT3s then. But we've seen Lauro Costa seems to be a master of fuel strategy, so I don't know. If I were these other drivers, I'd kind of watch what Lauro does and try to do what he does.
I'm not sure you can do what he does. That's
Yeah, I definitely couldn't do what Lauro does, that's for sure.
Well, the thing that concerns me for the field against Lauro Costa here, Joe, is the fact that Lauro Costa qualified on pole. He obviously had a very fast car, yet he was just running in there, 3rd place, kind of doing the same times, if not a bit slower than the leaders. Maybe he was thinking about fuel conservation from the get-go. Maybe he is going to try and 3-stop this and see if all the other GT3 cars have to make 4 stops.
And we saw him riding behind 3rd and 4th place for a number of laps. I wonder if he was kind of using that, if he was thinking ahead already this early in the race.
Yeah, that must have been frustrating for him because Robert Jackman and Dave Hill were going at it hammer and tons from the get-go. It didn't look like they were working together very well early on.
Either way, Lauro Costa, the only driver in the GT3 field to extend it an extra lap, whether that's by design or is the only one who can manage that extra fuel. We'll find out after the race, hopefully. He's going for his 4th win in a row in this series.
Well, by my calculations, Joe, the GT3 drivers will complete 36 laps in this race. The top leaders all pit on lap 8. Well, if you do 8 times 4, that comes out at 32. That's 4 laps short. 9 times 4, though, if Costa can make this work, is 36.
Very interesting. Meanwhile, we ride on board with second-place driver Alex Simonik, leading Jason Girard still. Girard came out of the pits behind him, even though, he went into the pits ahead. They're coming up to the Indianapolis kink. Not close enough to really make it a worry. Maybe some of the air taken off by riding behind Simonik. Both of them cleanly into the corner. Getting it right down to the apex, but looking much tidier coming out of the corner for Jason Girard as he closes down the gap. Now around one of the slowest corners there, Arnage. Simonik only leading by half a second.
Remember, they came into the pits. Girard was able to get around him before they came in. Simonik was able to get that spot back in pit lane.
Heading their way up to the Porsche curves. They've got a little bit of traffic ahead of them. That could come into effect. That's Lauro Costa. Costa's by himself.
Yeah, might clear himself here, but they're going to pass him before he has a chance to get to pit road.
They make it around without any dramas. Doesn't really affect the battle too much, it looks like. Although Girard stretching back. Simonik looking much stronger through the Porsche curves. Wonder if this is a difference in setup and downforce between these two drivers.
All right, so Costa's coming in.
Oh, and Simonik has a slowdown.
He said, "Are you kidding me?" was his words.
Is he going to be able to hold on to this, though? It's very tight between himself and Girard. Girard's got the inside. Oh, and Simonik loses it. Can he keep it out of the wall? Just noses it into there as he grips that tarmac just to the right of the grass. Let's watch the replay. Car losing it around that fast Dunlop curve. That will get your heart rate going, especially since he had Girard to the left side of him. He couldn't really correct the car to the other way.
Now he made contact, and the bad news is, Joe, that's just after his pit stop. So he if there's some damage, he's gonna have to live with that for a while.
Well, this hands that second place back to Girard by a significant margin. 4 seconds between Girard and Simonik. Bradley Haley, our current leader over in the GT3s.
Yes, Costa's just came out the pits right now, comes out third behind Patrick Fleming. The big shake-up in the GT3 order has been that Dave Hill is now fourth, because he had been battling Robert Trackman earlier. It looks like Trackman must have had a oh yeah, he had that spin into the pits, didn't he? He's really lost a lot of time.
Taking some pain for not maximizing his pit entry as we ride on board with Darling trying to hunt downhill.
Paul Darling's been going fast. I'm going to have to take a look back to see what lap he pitted on. Other drivers who made it to lap 9 in GT3, Kevin Santana is in the pits, although I'm not sure if that's a second stop actually for him. Armando Edwards, Sheldon Woloshin and Jim McInnes.
Let's go ahead and look at 16th position. This is remember, this used to be a 3-car battle, as they say in France, a partie de trois. But now it's a 2-car romance between Peterson as Huff, as Billy Smith has left these guys. But this has been going on the entire race. This is Peterson out of front in that, I'm going to guess, citrus flavor. That'll get me safe. And then behind them in that kind of blue and orange machine there.
Does that not count as a menage a trois?
I left out the sexual thing there.
Well, it's romantic.
Okay, all right.
Anyways.
It's a party of 3. See, I try to behave, and you suck me in anyway.
Well, okay. I'll give you that one.
Give you an update on the GT3 stops. Indeed, unfortunately for Kevin Santana, who had done a great job carving his way through the field, he did come down pit road twice, so must have had some issues on the first stop. Paul Darling pitted on lap 7, so that was actually quite early for the GT3s.
And what was interesting, when we looked away, Dave Hill pulled over and let Darling through. which I would say that was pretty obviously intentional, especially now that Hill has just rocked up behind him, that maybe Hill is also thinking of the fuel game here.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting with these guys. It's going to be right on the cusp.
As they work their way through the Golf kink, then through the no-name kink. Dino Topic is getting onto the radio for something, I'm not sure what. Maybe had a bit of a hairy moment with Sheldon, I'm guessing. Oh, yes, quite a moment, actually. It's worth going and getting this replay. This involved Lionel Duprat as well, as I think there may have been some contact. This is maybe about 40 to 50 seconds ago. Here we go. Down into the Mulsanne corners, trying to work their way in a battle around Sheldon. Didn't anticipate the braking. You're going to see almost gets into the back of him. I don't think they quite made contact.
Yeah, that's what makes that turn really tricky, Joe. Not only are you rolling the cars up from about 200 miles an hour just slow enough to get through the hairpin, but you got that kink that throws all the drivers a curveball on the entry.
Whew. Even got sideways coming through the corner. A Tokyo drift for Dino Topic, but lives to fight another day as we watch him try to chase back down Lionel Duprat. And I should correct myself, I don't believe this is a battle for position between them. But the good news for Dino Topic is he is almost through the GT3 field. At least on the same lap as them.
Just to follow up on a few guys we need to keep an eye on, John Ulmer's worked his way up to 8th after his early trouble. And how about Benefield? He got around Schindel just about half a lap ago, which was a long time here at Le Mans. He's now up to 5th, closing in on Gralt.
Again, if you're just joining us, you are watching the Autobahn Motorcar Group Sports Car Challenge here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We're about 50 minutes into this race. Let's run down the top 5 of each of our classes. And the prototypes, Robert Tinsey, he didn't start on the pole. He started in 3rd even, but he has been leading pretty much since the start. Jason Girard took the pole and lost that lead on the first lap from a slowdown penalty. He has fought his way back in a second. He took that from Alex Simonik relatively recently after Simonik made a mistake. Holding on to 3rd with a podium for Alex. That'll be handy if he can keep that until the checkered flag. Daniel Gralti is running in 4th. A nice run for Daniel Gralti, who started in 7th today. Gained 3 positions so far here in the first half of the race. Daniel Benefield, he took a penalty at the start, took a drive-through right at the drop of the green, and has managed to work his way back into the top 5. Let's go to the GT1s.
Trey Schuster driving away with it. He started top in class. He's still out there right now, about 9 seconds up on Stephen McGarvey, who started 2nd in class. The big mover, though, as predicted by one of the commentators here, is Billy Smith, who started in 8th position in class, working his way up to 3rd. He's still got quite a way to go to get up to McGarvey, but it's a long ways. 4th position, we talked about it before. It's this battle. It continues on. It's Peterson right now out in front of Huff, but check back with us a little later, and that'll be different. Sam?
Well, in GT3, Bradley Haley started in 2nd position, got the lead on the first lap when Laura Costa had a slowdown penalty. He's never looked back. Similar story for Patrick Fleming, who moved up from 3rd on the grid to 2nd with Costa's slowdown penalty. However, Laura Costa running in 3rd, he's been as low as 5th. He may have the last laugh after the 2 drivers in front of him had to pit on lap 2 and pit on lap 8, and he was able to make it to lap 9. Oh. Running in 4th in class, we've got Paul Darlin, who's been working his way through the field after a pit start, ahead of a Ford GT of Dave Hill, the only Ford GT in the top 5. And Joe, I think John Ulmer just had some trouble.
Yes, I'm sorry that I kind of butted in there. I saw it and I just reacted. And did we get that on camera? I'm not sure, but it looks like we got the replay. This was coming up with lap traffic. Paul Lindsay was blinking significantly. You caught that a little bit earlier, Bill. And It caught John out as he came up to get around this Aston Martin. Here we're going to see it from on board. Whoa. Oh, yeah, that would throw anybody off, and he met the barrier. He's actually come into the pits. He's coming to his stall now. I'm wondering if he's taken his free car.
Yeah, let's go back about another 20 seconds, actually, because right after that, Trimbo 5 had a bit of a moment in the chicane. Mind you, it was more of just a slide, to be honest. Maybe we don't have to catch a replay, but you can see it's really dinned in the front end of his Golf liveried 00 machine. Here we go.
Ooh, those cars are not supposed to mount the curbs like that, Bill. And I can see why it caused them a little bit of damage.
Yeah, it's getting a little rough out there for the prototypes.
Well, and we should mention, and you can kind of see it, those who are used to seeing these prototypes on iRacing, that rear wing is going to look just a little bit different, as well as some of the dive planes. They have a lot less downforce around this track.
Guys, Robert Jackman, a driver who had been doing well early in GT3, he's now retired from the race, but he was just in the pits with a lot of damage on the front end of his GT3, and that's a shame because he had been running up there towards the top, in the top 5 before he spun on pit entry, and we might have a replay of exactly what happened here.
All right, let's see if we can find Jackman. As he comes up to, it looks like this is Indianapolis. Oh, that corner has some extremely difficult braking. You're coming in there at a rate of knots. And it looks like it has bit yet another car. Lost the rear. You're going to see it here from on board. And there was no saving it with that Armco right there at the edge of the track.
Joe, you and I have talked about Robert Jackman in the last couple of rounds and how he used to be a driver who never really got his act together, but now he's been having much better races. Unfortunately, this wasn't to be one of them. Meanwhile, change for second place in GT3 as Lauro Costa easily goes by Patrick Fleming, and Fleming had a very bad exit out of a previous turn. I don't know if that's why Costa got by or if he had a slowdown penalty. I think it's easier to say that Fleming just really had a bad exit out of a previous corner, but you can see he might be able to save gas behind Costa if he runs behind him here.
I'll be curious to see how that plays out. Interesting thing about Le Mans is that it has these long straights, but it also has some technical sections that you have to hold on to that car ahead as he rides the coattails of the Brazilian coming up to the Mulsanne corner. Now, for Lauro Costa, it's 11 seconds up to our GT3 leader, Bradley Haley. But again, he's on a slightly different pit strategy, if I remember correctly, from Haley.
The good news for Haley is with the lead that he's got, you see it there, 10 seconds, maybe he could just try and save fuel, knowing that he's got 10 seconds to spare.
And Haley is probably going to really want to run away with this one if he can, both with the double points and because he hasn't had a win since Sebring. It's been a long time this season for Bradley Haley to stand on the top step.
Well, he's in luck today because I picked Lauro Costa.
Well, and speaking of the picks that you guys had as well, it's intrigued me, Bill's confidence in Billy Smith, and so far it's been paying off, Bill, but what is it about him here at Le Mans that you feel so confident about?
I just feel confident in this talent. I didn't like his qualifying time. That's not Billy Smith, and he has been a good qualifier all season. The problem is he's got around the guys that were easy pickings. Now he's really got to work. Give you that interval. It's 9 seconds, almost 10 seconds to McGarvey. That's going to be a tough order. And he's got an hour and a half to do it, but yeah, it's going to be interesting.
And we should add another 10 seconds up to Troy Schuster, so almost 20 seconds between himself and the leader. He's going to have to hustle if he wants this one. Bill, if Billy Smith wins this race, I think you're going to buy my next lottery ticket. Considering
after my Sato pick yesterday, yeah, I'm hot.
There we see Stephen McGarvey in second place right now. Last year's champion in the GT1 class has not been able to repeat his form this season. Found it for a little bit recently. And as you can see, in second place, he's going strong. But McGarvey's going to have to start rifling off wins if he wants to be a repeat winner in the championship. That battle between Leif Peterson and Ryan Huff has not abated. Still about half a second between the two GT1 cars. Fighting for that fourth position, they're going to have Gerard coming through. Second place driver in the prototypes is still about 7 seconds behind Tinsey, has not been able to make inroads.
I think Ryan
This
Huff
is not helping.
Yeah, I think Ryan Huff has decided if I were even to get around, look at this going on here, we'll stick with this here. There goes Gerard, 1-2, gets that done. Huff has decided even if I were to get around Peterson, I'm not going anywhere, so I'll just sit back here. We'll deal with this a little closer to the checkered flag.
And these GT1s are even more thirsty than the GT3s typically, Bill, so I think this is a bit of a strategy play.
That said, he just lost it!
Commentator's curse. Once again, Ryan Huff into the Ford chicane. We're going to see the replay and watch what this looked like from on board. Boy, we've seen a lot of cars coming into chicanes nearly miss the machine ahead.
Ugh. Did a good job of staying off of Peterson, though. I think he cranked it over in there. Decided to spin it out rather than run into the back of him.
Well, what this did not lose him positions, but lost him about 9 seconds from Peterson. Wojciech Sviatovic is still about 12 seconds back from Ryan Huff. Whoa, and Sviatovic has problems! Wow.
All right, that one's on you. I'll take the first one. That one's yours, Joe. Oh, and he's towed. Swirly is towed.
Ooh, he must have just glanced off the barrier wrong. I didn't think he had that hard of a hit. We've seen this before with a number of cars into this corner with the way that the...
I think it's a hardware failure, Joe.
Oh.
It looks like he was stuck turning right.
Oh, that has got to be gutting for Swirly. Another driver who we were talking about earlier has had great results. And he had, unfortunately, a bad finish at Imola. We know that. I'm checking to see where he finished at Monza here.
Sam, your turn to pick somebody. Joe and I are scared now. We're gunshot.
Fourth place for Swirly at Monza. Or excuse me, at Imola. And a third place at Monza. Not the sort of results that he had in the previous rounds, although he did get a third as well at Watkins Glen. Boy, he definitely seems to be a momentum driver, that's for sure.
I'll predict the future. I'll predict that all the competitors... I'm sorry?
He's asking you to go to... we want to go to DePratt. Our director must know something. There we go.
Oh, yeah. Yep. DePratt had a spin, which is what he was asking Sam to predict that DePratt's doing good, and which is we're going to see here on the replay. What corner is this in here? Oh, we've come back. Ford chicane is where that spin happened.
Once we watch this replay, I'll make my actual prediction.
We're off the replay.
Okay, alright, we're off the replay, alright. My actual prediction is that all the drivers that I'm going to race Thursday night on the GSRC in the Lionheart Racing Series are going to do well.
I don't think it works that way, Sam. All right, Sam with wishful thinking. I like your optimism, though. That's
guys,
very
we're watching these two drivers run 4th and 5th in GT3 right now, and they have switched. They switched around a little bit ago. Dave Hill got by, and I'm sorry, Patrick Fleming, 2nd in GT3. They're passing him here. Look at the front end of his machine. It's ripped off. Patrick Fleming has had a hard hit into the wall.
Wow, and just the number of drivers having problems in succession. This was down into the Forest S's. This all seems to be under braking.
That looks like another thing that I would call hardware failure, which maybe indicates to me that I'm completely wrong and there's something about these turns that just makes the cars hook to the right. Meanwhile, Robert Tinsey and Alex Simonic are in for scheduled stops.
As is Daniel Benefield, who was just beginning to run down Daniel Gralty for 4th position. So Benefield coming in.
All
Give
right.
you an update on Fleming here, then we'll go to the stops. Fleming is still trying to run around the track with that damaged car.
I have to imagine he's trying to get back to the pits. Oh, and Robert Tinsley's having a bug. This car is not refueling, he says.
What the heck, he says.
This is, we tend to like to make equivalents to real-world racing. This is almost like his pit crew can't get the Buckeye to engage.
And that's Benefield there. There we go.
All right. That really hurt him. And Jason Girard, remember, was about 7 seconds behind. This could be enough for him to catch him. Girard did stay out. He stayed out 1 extra lap last time. If he stays out another extra lap this time, that'll be 2 laps that he has on Tinsley on fuel. But will he actually need that strategy call with the problem that Tinsley had? Ooh, the plot thickens here in the Autobahn Motorcar Group Sports Car Challenge as we just about approach the halfway point.
Right before that happened, Joe, we were watching Dave Hill and Paul Darling, and I was mentioning how they switched a little while ago, but other than that, they seem to be working together. It had been for 4th place, obviously, with the crash for Patrick Fleming. It is now for 3rd place.
We see that
Billy.
on screen. Oh, go ahead.
Billy Smith just came over the mic and blamed Tinsley's refueling problem on John Ulmer for pulling the fuse, he said, on the refill rig. So some good humor going on with these guys.
Yeah, Ulmer, thankfully, still out there running, so he is not escaped out of this race yet. He's running 9th, though. That damage that he got from the run-in with the GT1 car has set him back significantly. I believe that was that Fleming that he got into? Or was that Darling?
I can't read my notes.
Oh, it was Lindsay, excuse me. Driver that I'm keeping an eye on is Jason Girard, who is getting closer to the pits now.
Talking about Fleming, Joe, we mentioned how he's still trying to drive that beat-up car around the track to the pits. He's only dropped back to 6th place. He just lost that to Sheldon Rosenbaum, and I think he's going to have to be forced to pit here, but it can serve as his 2nd stop. He's just going to have to go to this 4-stop strategy, which I think he was on anyway.
Car is driving surprisingly well for the amount of damage that he incurred. Oh, and as I say that, he goes very wide coming out of karting.
Dave Hill is into the pits, and I guess this is just one downside of the Ford GT, because he also pitted on lap 7 for his first stop. It looks like it burns fuel a little bit quicker than the Mercedes. However, I think he should still be able to make the end on 4 stops. He might be stretching it, though. He might have to make a 5th.
Both of our leaders in the top 2 classes come in at the same time. Schuster and Girard are entering towards their stalls. Now, this is really where we're going to get a picture of how much it hurt Robert Tinsley to have that long stop.
Tinsley just coming up to Corvette now. He's got a ways to go.
Indeed, he's coming up to the Ford chicane. Through the first one, nice and clean. Tucks it over to the line. Over the curves through the final chicane. Girard is already moving. Smokes the tires as he comes out, gets past the cones. Where is Tinsley? Tinsley's right behind him, but he is in fact behind him, as Girard is going to take the lead after Tinsley has refueling problems. But it could not be for long, because here's traffic ahead of him. Matt Owens overtaken by Jason Girard. The chase is on between our prototype leaders.
Oh! Poor Matt Owens had no idea what he was in for there.
Wrong place at the wrong time for Matt Owens. And that broke up what could have been an intense battle. Tinsey, what did Tinsey say on the radio thing?
I didn't catch it. I was like, give Matt credit, though, for holding his line, just keeping it nice and straight, letting Bob the Blade find his way around.
Well, I think that was maybe part of the problem is I think Bob expected him to hold to the inside of the Forest S's there, and he tried to go for the middle of the track, and they both went for the same bit of track. It's going to get paid back here because coming through the Forza chicane, Gerard has to deal with Kevin Santana. Gets by him, but he loses a little bit of time.
Yeah, just in Matt's defense, he had just let Gerard around, so it would have involved a sudden weave over. He was kind of forced over there. That's a tough situation where you let the leader by, then you got to figure out, now where do you want me to go?
Anytime you have to switch sides across the track. So still a break between our top two, Gerard and Tinsey, about 1.3 seconds. And I believe that is almost all of our prototypes having finished their stops. I see Chris Pence only having had one, but he's now in as we speak. Oh, and Huff, we caught just a glance of him going wide through the Mulsanne corner.
Yeah, Huff.
Oh, and did Benefield just go wide? He's in fourth right now. He's gained spots while we weren't looking. Yes, he was way wide. He was trying to overtake Matt Owens. Owens in the thick of everything. Owens definitely did nothing wrong on this one, though, I will say, as it looked like Benefield just locked him up a little bit. Here we're going to... Oh, no, we're live here on Benefield.
Benefield has been trying to run down Gralty for the last half hour. He's gotten to within a second, and every time he gets there, he makes a mistake, and he has to start over again.
Now, of our GT1 drivers, a few have made their second stop. Steve McGarvey now is coming in for his. Ryan Huff, remember, he had a scare just recently. He's approaching pit entry soon as he comes through the Porsche curves.
So maybe we can pick up Troy Schuster. We expect him to be able to get around and make this pass while McGarvey's in there. He had about a 10-second lead. He should be able to do this pretty easily. Of course, again, you never know what they're going to decide to do on tires.
Oh, was there some contact between Daniel Benefield and another driver? Yeah, Santana went a little bit off, and don't know what he was.
I think it was Santana getting into Gralty, is what I'm seeing.
Oh,
that's the second time. Those were the two that almost came together earlier.
So, drivers out there making friends. There we see Stephen McGarvey having come in. Troy Schuster just exiting from his pit stop.
But with that,
his stall. Go ahead.
That said, something has happened to Simonik, who was only about a second and a half back, and now he is 11 seconds back of Gralty. Yeah, so Simonik has had some issue. I'll see if I can find it.
Mark Wilson in a close side-by-side battle with Sean Reese right now coming through the Porsche curves, and it looks like Wilson comes out on top as it was a test of bravery between those two through the S's.
No,
look at the replay of this battle.
Look at the replay, then I'll talk about the prototypes.
Working his way around the outside, switches back to the inside through bridge, and he has to give it up. Nicely done. Go ahead, Bill.
All right, let me talk you through my thought process here. I looked at McGralty, and I knew he had about a second and a half lead on the guy who was chasing him. But that was Benefield. Benefield has got around him, so Benefield move him up to third. McGralty is in fourth position, and Alex Simonik was not involved in any issue. He's just 11 seconds back running in fifth, so Benefield up to third.
With about 5 minutes to the halfway mark of this race, we are going to take a quick break. But before we go, let's give you the top three in each of the classes. Prototypes, Jason Gerard leading the way by a scant 1.5 seconds over Robert Tinsey, who has finally had an error in this race, and it wasn't him, it was his pit crew who couldn't seem to get the fuel in. Daniel Benefield is rounding out the top 3 after coming back from his penalty at the start. Bill?
Let's go ahead and do the GT1s. I'm going to do these because my time is... There it is. Troy Schuster running in first position. He's got a nice lead over. It should be Stephen McGarvey in second, I would think. And then running in third, I'm going to think it was going to be Billy Smith.
Alright, so then we go to GT3 where Bradley Haley continues to lead, but does Laura Costa have the upper hand on strategy? He might only have to make 3 stops during this race. In fact, Bradley Haley comes in this lap, running third place in the class now as Sheldon Rosenbaum, who took third once Paul Darling pitted last lap, and Paul Darling came out in fourth.
And with that, we are going to go to a quick break. We'll come back from here to the finish for this special 2.4-hour race of the Autobahn Motorcar Group Sports Car Challenge. Don't go away. Welcome back to Le Mans. You just saw the pass for the lead during the break on our special GSRC portal so that you didn't miss any of the action. Robert Tinsey chased Gerard back down and on the run to Indianapolis managed to overtake him. And Gerard already starting to drop off. So Gerard seeming to not quite have the pace of Tinsey, who has turned up the wick. And interestingly, Bill, you noticed Daniel Benefield's progress since his since his penalty at the start as well.
Here we are at the halfway point. He's 14 seconds back of the leaders. We got to think that's probably cut off about half the distance that he started. We're estimating it was about 30 seconds at the beginning of the race. So, there you go.
I think Daniel's got the bit between his teeth after that penalty, trying to prove that you just cannot stop the Australian. The young driver, ever since he showed up to the series, has really made his mark with multiple wins, including last round, although it has not been without controversy.
Talking about drama, it looks like there's been some for Armando Edwards, who's sitting in the pits with the front end of his Mercedes missing.
Ooh, that is some big damage there on that car. We found what happened. Let's look at the replay. This looks to be, let's see, coming out of Maison Blanche. Maybe he got the braking wrong here into the Ford chicane. Whoa, car veered left very hard. Did not like the braking, and that Mercedes with some serious damage. Meanwhile, Lionel Duprat was in the pits a while ago. I'm not sure if this was an unscheduled stop. I'm going back to check to see if Lionel had hit anything. There you can see him on screen with a whole car. And I did find an incident, but it seems to be only a self-spin. I'm not sure if it's really worth going back for a replay. It was up into the Dunlop chicane, spun the car around. Actually, he spun the car twice. He pulled a 360 and then tried to get it going out of the gravel. And the car wouldn't grip, and so it did another 360. So gave himself an extra 10 seconds that he didn't need. Meanwhile, we ride on board with second place in the prototypes, Jason Girard, who has managed to catch back up to Robert Tinsey. Bob the Blade is not having it his own way, even though he's got the lead back. Oh, and look at this, a good run. He lifts, though.
Again, I think Tinsey knows he's not going anywhere even if we're to make this pass.
Girard, you mean?
Yes, Girard. So let's let Tinsey lead for a while.
So with the battle being that close over in the prototypes, it is not necessarily quite as close in the GT1s as Troy Schuster leads by about 7 seconds over Steve McGarvey.
Yeah, it's not quite as big as it used to be, though. That interval was almost 10 seconds before the pit stop, so McGarvey has closed it down a little bit. We'll keep an eye on it.
Wonder if this is maybe some of the tire strategy the drivers were talking about? Did Steven get tires and Troy didn't, maybe?
No, I think they're all on the same strategy, but I think McGarvey just might be pushing a little bit, or Troy Schuster has just decided to mind the gap. We'll see if it continues to shrink.
The gap behind them to Billy Smith is just about 9 seconds. So that has stayed about stationary.
But what is interesting, and I can't find out why, Ryan Huff, we've been documenting this, the Huff-Peterson battle. Huff is out in front now in 4th position. He's got about 2.5 seconds over Peterson. I couldn't find out where it was about. Maybe it was pit stop. Maybe one of them took tires. But in fact, I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, Peterson's pit stop was 1:08 compared to 55.
Oh, and we lost Huff on screen.
Guys, I've got to admit, my iRacing just crashed. I wonder if this has happened to a few drivers.
I too am having trouble.
Well, mine is still good, so we've seen this before with the Lotus 49 series on broadcast with multiple drivers dropping out. Interestingly, I did notice that Lauro Costa, here we see on screen, has come in for his pit stop, while Bradley Haley is staying out.
Yeah, Lauro Costa, I'm really feeling confident for him, guys.
We're losing more drivers. Sheldon will... Oh, no, here we go. Well, Loshin, Pfeiffer, Chandler Rubeck, Miguel Meyer, David Sockrider all have lost connection. Mark Wilson has now lost connection. Paul Lindsay's lost connection. Kevin Santana has lost connection. Ryan Huff has lost connection. Wow. And now we're losing major players as well. It looks like Benefield is gone.
That's too bad. That's just a shame.
We'll wait to see if the organisers do anything about this.
I'm not sure how they can handle this. This is potentially a red flag situation. They're talking about it over the radio right now. Costa has come out from his pit stops in the meantime. We'll keep you up to date.
Yeah, Costa is the only driver who has made it 9 laps on both stints so far in GT3, at least of the only drivers running up front. Some drivers pit on lap 17. That means they made 8 laps on one stint and 9 laps on one stint. And those were David Tejeda, who has had a great race, as well as Kevin Santana, who would have had a great race had it not been for having to make 2 pit stops under the first round of stops for whatever reason. So there's some other drivers there that watch for the 3-stop strategy, but right now it's really looking to play into Laura Costa's hands.
And I don't know if we can get the replay, but Robert Tinsley lost the lead because more than about a minute ago, he had a huge moment coming into the Forza chicane. I think we have the replay. Here it is. This is going to hand it back over to Gerard, who's still about half a second in the lead currently. Ooh, just on entry, the rear came out from under him. Nice save, though. So they're still discussing how they're going to deal with this incident. Fortunately, I didn't quite catch all of what they anticipate will be doing to deal with this.
We were on the other side of the halfway mark, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, in the real world, this would probably count as an official race if it got rained out. Oh, it sounds like they're going to continue and just not count this as official results.
Well, you look at that, you can almost see storm clouds off in the distance.
Yeah, appropriately overcast here today at Le Mans.
So this will not be a point-scoring race, is what you're saying, which of course has huge implications considering the fact it was meant to be opposite. It was meant to be a double points
Yeah,
race.
Exactly, yeah. Well, that'll make a few drivers very happy.
Well, I'm sure there's some drivers who are going to spend the next 1 hour and 6 minutes arguing their case.
This battle's still going on as we hear what the stewards elect to do with this. This is for the lead in the prototypes. Gerard still leading. Remember, he started on the pole, but lost it early on. Tinsley has been leading most of the way, but then ran into refueling problems. Gerard took it back. Tinsley took it back from him. Tinsley makes a mistake, hands it back to Gerard. How many times can the yo-yo swing back and forth?
Alright guys, and I can tell you I've got back into iRacing. It took me that long, so given whenever I said I lost it, that's what it could take for some other drivers. Let's see if we start seeing some reconnect.
Well, your partner is envious because he's not there yet, but you know, there's always winners and losers when this happens, and certainly you could think about Swiderdovic, who was having a horrible race. A great opportunity for guys to catch him as we look at this battle on screen. There's a pass.
Tinsley takes it once again deep into the brakes on the Mulsanne corner and overtakes the 0-2 of Gerard. Gerard gets back into the draft. He could retake it back once again. And he elects not to. A big lift down up to Indianapolis. And I haven't seen very many drivers reconnect yet.
Jimbo Pfeiffer gave the announcement, "I am back," he says.
Joe, on my timing and scoring here, I'm showing Robert Jackman, Lionel Duprat, Daniel Benefield, Miguel Meyer, Jim McInnes, Karting Kundina, Sean Rees, Sredovic, I never have to pronounce his name much, Michael Reedy, Paul Lindsay, and Armando Edwards not in servo. Of course, some of those had retired early on in the race.
Many of them, though, were still running. Apologies if we go quiet for moments. We're trying to listen to the radios to see if we can gather what is going to happen with the race. Last word we heard is that it will not be points pain. But in the meantime, we thankfully still have quite a battle here for the lead. We are looking at Bradley Haley, though, who is well clear in the GT3s.
Joe, now that I'm back in and I've caught up with the timing and scoring on GT3 here, the thing that's impressive here is even though Bradley Haley would have to make an extra stop than Lauro Costa, he's been, and actually Costa's not second in class, Paul Darlin is, he's built up 20-second lead over the second place car. There you see it there, 19 seconds over Paul Darlin. What that does mean is if he does get to a final stint where he just has to stretch his fuel one extra lap, maybe he could back off a loud pedal a little bit, save fuel, and he has a big buffer where he can afford to do that. Paul Darlin has had an incredible race because he's also on this 4-stop strategy, but so is pretty much everyone else. So I have a feeling he's going to end up with a podium finish here despite starting in the pits.
I would not put it past Paul Darling to be able to pull that one out of the hat. You can see currently running second in that GT3 class with only an hour to go. The unfortunate thing is that this has split up a number of battles that we were keeping our eye on.
Well, in the prototypes, it looks like out of the top 5, it looks like Benefield's the only one that got bit. In the GT1s in the top 5, it looks like Huff got bit, but he has come back in.
Remember, Dino Topic suffered this early on as well and had to come back. So this almost levels the playing field for Dino a little bit.
What they should make everybody do, if you haven't been booted, you should have to sign out and then sign back in.
That would be an interesting way of doing things. Unfortunately, people load the track at different rates. Now, we have Daniel Benefield, who was one of the drivers who got booted, unfortunately, who's hopped into our Ready for Interview room. Let's see if we can pull him in, ask him about what he experienced out there. Daniel, you were making quite an incredible comeback through the field after that penalty at the start, and then it looks like disaster has struck.
Yeah, racing crashed, and it was a bit scary, to be honest, being in the rift, and I knew something was up. I thought the rift had actually dropped out, and I was still in the session, but then racing itself actually crashed. So, yeah, that put pay to my race in the end. I mean, it's a shame, but it happens, I guess.
Daniel, it's Soup here. Let me just ask you this question. I want you to start prepping your forum post right now. Since the race doesn't count, did you serve your penalty?
Well, technically, yes, I did. So, but to be honest, it would have been pretty cool if it all counted and everything. I don't think I would have won because I pitted on lap 7 at the first stint, which in reality I should have gone around for another lap. So I think I was slightly off strategy. Tenzi's on the same strategy. So I think Gerard's got this race in the bag, to be honest. But had I stayed out for that extra lap at the rate I was catching Jason, especially now that they're both battling, it would have been an interesting finish, and it would have been pretty cool to serve the penalty and still win the race.
Speaking of which, Robert Tinsley has come in for his stop. Now, Daniel, have you experienced this bug at Le Mans before? We've seen it here on the Global Sim Racing channel with a race prior, but did you expect this coming, or were you aware that this was a potential danger?
No, I had no idea. That's why I originally thought it was the rift, because just the way it dropped out was as if the rift had lost, like the sensor had lost connection or something, not iRacing itself crashing. And then I took the rift off and realised that it was iRacing having a meltdown.
Well, I expect you'll be filing a bug report to iRacing post-race here. Again, commiserations. We were extremely impressed by your run up to third.
Yeah, it's what could have been, and I was hoping with double points it'd be good, because I'm trying to get on the point graphic by the end of the season. So I was hoping with the double points a win would have been really nice today.
It certainly would have helped. That was Daniel Benefield, who was running in third before a computer issue removed him from the race. So, Bill, they're talking a little bit more about what's going to happen. I just heard a mention about moving the race to the end of the schedule.
They're going to make it official. They're not going to count this one, and they will redo it. They'll just tag it on the end of the schedule. They'll run it again.
Okay.
Interesting.
And one driver I'm not entirely sure is too happy about this is Laura Costa, because Dino Topic, who works closely and is involved closely with the league organisers, just said over the chat, he said, those drivers who are muted and don't know what's going on, please unmute now. And Laura Costa was one of the drivers who responded to that in the chat, so I'm not entirely sure he knew any of this was going on, and he's probably thinking he could win here. He has a handy lead in the championship anyway, but I'm sure he would have liked to have extended that today.
That certainly would have paid off handsomely for the Brazilian.
I'm sorry, Joe. Alex Simonik just lost the connection.
Another one. And we just heard word that they had more than 15 drivers suffer problems from this. So we had, Joe, remember,
right call. You and I were just sitting in on one where we did the Lotus 49 broadcast on a Sunday, and all the drivers got together and decided to stop and wait in the pits until they all rejoined, and then they put on a show for GSRC.
Exactly. A little bit harder for them to redo the race, which is why they did that one. These guys, with it being a private league, can reschedule. This is sad to see this happen. What was a fascinating race with so many different types of strategies, so many mistakes that we saw out there, really mixing things up. You can see Sheldon Rosenbaum still running in 5th and Tejada in 6th.
And being a former series organizer, let me just tell you, here's the debate. Does Benefield's penalty count? Will he have to serve it again? If he does have to serve it again, can he serve it on the next race, or does he have to serve it on the double point rate at Le Mans at the end of the season? Those are all the things in store for these guys coming up.
As one of the other organizers of a league that we cover,
that happened a couple moments ago too.
There?
Yeah, that happened a couple moments ago too. He's been blinking in and out. Gerard in.
Indeed, we see our leader come in. But I was going to say a debate that Mike Willett of the Pack Majors was having a discussion, Bill, was which camp are you in? The camp that believes in the spirit of the law or the letter of the law?
I'm a strict... Yeah, the spirit of the law is a slippery slope. You don't want to go there because it's hard to find where the spirit starts and where unfair. Yeah, I'm a big letter of the law guy.
Dino Topic and Laura Costa continuing their argument in the chat. Dino saying, well, do you want us to finish this race off? Laura said, yeah, sure. The field has dropped weeks, thinking, hey, I'd like this
I don't think he gets it.
Yeah, and Dino's replying, hey, buddy, half the field have gone. This is a bit of a bigger deal. So it's interesting to see how this will pan out. The debate's ongoing, though.
We had this happen in the Championship Motorsport Series, another series that we cover. They actually had a page in the rule book that addressed it. They just write to the rule book, and this is how it is, and that's what they did.
It sounds like maybe a new rule will be added to the Autobahn rule book maybe after this incident to sort of deal with these situations.
Not the first time in auto racing, even in real world, that there is controversy. It's just another way that iRacing simulates the real world.
Now, the thing that I want to know, and they have classes within iRacing that drivers put on, teach you how to be fast. Can Lauro give us a class on how to type while you're driving? That amazes me that he can type these full sentences in the middle of a race. I don't know how he does that. Troy Schuster, in the meantime, running smoothly through the entry of the chicane to the pit lane, out of first from the GT1s. 54 minutes left on the clock on what will be an unofficial race from what we hear. If you're just joining us, welcome to the Global Sim Racing channel. A bit of problems here at Le Mans as the Autobahn Motorcar Group Sportscar Challenge has had some issues with connections for drivers. Almost 15 drivers. Was that Ryan Huff towing? Yeah, Ryan Huff towed. A number of drivers, more than 15 drivers, had disconnects here in the race, and they have elected to treat it almost like a rainout, and that the final results will not count, and they are going to hold the race once more later on in the season. We will get official confirmation from the stewards later on if we can, but that is what the word that we are getting right now.
GT3s, honestly, unless I'm missing someone here, seems to be the class the least affected by this trouble, with Bradley Haley, Paul Darling, Laura Costa, Patrick Fleming and Sheldon Rosenbaum running in the top 5. They've been up all race long.
Maybe their results can count and they could just run the...
I'm wondering if Laura's going to argue exactly that.
Now, wait a minute. I'm looking at the leaders in the HPDs. They were within half a second before the pit stops, and now after, we're hearing that Gerard has taken tires while Tinsey did not, and that has put 15 seconds between them. Bill, was that a mistake?
No, I think what's up here, I think Tinsey may know, as we got from Benefield, I think Tinsey may know he has one more stop to make. Maybe he's just going to try to see what kind of distance he can get and do a splash and go. I think Gerard is good to go here with what would it be, I guess, one more stop.
One more to go, yeah.
Tinsey has 2.
Interesting.
Yeah, now I would not have thought this if it wasn't for Daniel Benefield coming in and giving us that information, and I would have to think that he's on top of it. He's pretty sharp cookie. Sharp cookie? Guess that's not really how that is.
Well, I talked about a horse being in a fight last race, so we can excuse you on that one. Well, unfortunately, even though this mixes up the strategy, what this does do is it takes away our direct fight between our leaders in the HPDs, which is pretty much the last fight on track between cars that wasn't more than 5 seconds apart. Which means now it is down to the drivers to hit their marks instead of worrying about what car is ahead or behind them.
I must admit I'm a little bit out of the loop here. Let's see, but I'm showing now, how about Brandon Postma all of a sudden showing up in 4th ahead of Peterson? Of course, Huff has had his issues, so good to see Brandon up there. He's in the points chase. Again, it doesn't really matter now, does it?
Yes, this one won't be divvying out any points for them in regards to them having a good finish, but still, I think this might be for pride.
Really tough break for Troy Schuster. Clearly the class of the field in the GT1s.
Postma's not been having that great of a season from what I'm seeing from his stats, though. A 12th place finish at Road Atlanta, 8th at Sebring. Kind of collected it together with a 4th at Mosport, but then a 5th at Watkins Glen. 2nd, finally got onto the podium for the first time of the season at Monza, and then back off of it once again with a 5th at Imola.
Sitting 5th in the points, 60 out. Good news for him, he's behind Paul Darling. It looks like Paul has given up with GT1s. He's moved over to GT3s.
Yeah, and talking about Paul giving up, you see him in the pits there. That's not scheduled. He stopped on the Mulsanne Straight and came into the pits.
We were talking about whether or not certain issues were hardware issues. That one, Sam, I think might be.
Yeah, well, he'd been running 2nd in class. You see Haley going by him here now, but I mean, even if Darling did have his issues fixed, his tow is going to last a couple more minutes. That's a shame, because Paul Darling, as we mentioned, started from the pits and worked his way up to 2nd. Looks set to finish on the podium.
Meanwhile, Stephen McGarvey, you saw finishing his pit stop in the GT1s, and I was about to say that Troy Schuster was going to retake the lead, but was Troy one of the ones affected by the...
No, Troy's not an issue, but...
Troy took tires, we're hearing, which has set him behind McGarvey.
Yep. Well, I'll get something to watch, as McGarvey now has about a 5-second lead.
We're hearing that Darlene's paddle shifter is not shifting up. So that pretty much confirms that
would slow you down. I'm not really technically really savvy, but I would think if you can't shift up, you're not going to go very fast.
Well, he could pull a Schumacher from 94 at Spain and just stick it in high gear and run the rest of the race in the high gear, but good luck doing that.
Yeah, Schumacher was lucky to get that car in 5th gear. I have a feeling the problem with Darlin here, the fact that he was on that Mulsanne straight coming out of one of the chicanes, he probably downshifted to something like 3rd or 4th, and of course with the long straights around here, you're not going to get the kind of speed that you need. So I think this is a rare instance of a transmission failure on iRacing.
Don't usually see those. Chris Pence coming in for his pit stop through the entry chicane. Now, how is Owens doing? We haven't looked at him in a while. Then we're switching over to the GT3s. Is he still out on track, or did he have issues? Still out there running 7th?
Yeah, he's done well, Joe, because he was running towards the tail end of a pack early on. He was one of the slower GT3 drivers in practice and qualifying, but when it's come to race day, I think he had a couple minor issues earlier on, but considering the stuff he went through just to get to this race, he's actually had a pretty solid middle portion of the race that's moved him up into 7th.
It was 50 years that Dan Gurney and AJ Foyt raced in a car that looked a lot like that one right here. Looks good on this track.
And Owens has got to be grateful. Well, I guess now that the points don't pay, it's not as critical, but earlier today, his computer wasn't actually working. He took it to a place called Aurora Computer Technologies, and they fixed it today and got it turned around for him, and he wants to give them a big thank you for getting that car together, or getting his machine together rather, so that he could get in the car and get out there and race today. Yeah,
kind of like the crew putting in a new engine right before the race.
Exactly.
And there you see he's just moved up into 6th because Paul Darlin has retired from the race with that gearbox issue.
That is gutting for Darling, especially with the race that he was having. Meanwhile, we're watching Ulmer, a driver who thought maybe this race was not going to go well, but he's up to 4th, thanks to a number of competitors having disconnects. Behind him, that is Mark Schindel, and that is for position. He pulls off to the side on the Mulsanne straight as they approach the Michelin chicane. Is he going to have it cleanly? Ulmer lets him through. Moves Schindel up to 4th now.
Now, our GT3 leader, Bradley Haley, he is pit on lap 8 and lap 16. He just completed... Oh, I'm sorry, going back to the Ulmer battle, it's heating up again.
That was a little bit tight, splitting Patrick Fleming on either side, but Ulmer gets it done. Oh, but Ulmer overshoots the corner, he's off into the gravel, and that's going to hand it right back to Schindel. Schindel's getting on the radio saying that he lifted to give him some space to come back on.
That wouldn't be surprised me if Ulmer didn't do that on purpose. He likes to pass guys just to have a little more fun out there. Let me update you on the GT1 leaders. It is a little bit interesting. We have something to keep an eye on. McGarvey's out there. The lead after the pit stop was 5.1 seconds, down to 4.6 seconds now. And again, McGarvey on older tires. Schuster, let's see if he can run him down. I expect him to get there pretty soon. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets there by maybe so long around here, maybe 2 laps.
And speaking of the tire battles, Jason Girard was 15 seconds back. He's gained about 2 seconds on Tinsley. He is running him down, but is it quick enough is the question. So they work their way, 44 minutes left on the clock here. If you're joining us here watching the Autobahn Motorcar Group Sports Car Challenge, it has been an interesting one. Between slowdown penalties galore, drivers having problems braking from multiple different corners, and then it was almost as if the heavens opened up and rain came down and we lost a number of drivers with disconnects from the iRacing service.
Talking about tires, I learned something new learning some Indy facts. Firestone did not want to make a tire that wore out because they didn't think that they could sell it. It would look bad to their customers if drivers would have to come in and change tires in a 500-mile race. It wasn't until they had a tire war when the drivers said, you know, we can go faster with softer tires if you let them change us, that they actually started to make softer tires.
Interesting.
I thought that was interesting. I have a little bit here. I have this in my notes that says, in case there is like a problem with the internet, use this.
break glass in case of fire. So
That's it.
John Ulmer is stationary as he's come into his pit stall and takes his stop. We saw him do that on screen. We switched to Robert Tinsey, still running in first. And interestingly, he's now upped that gap back to 15 seconds. Did Gerard have some issues there? Must have ran into some traffic. I'm going back to investigate to see what happened. I think he just ran into traffic. It looks like Dave Hill was caught at just the wrong time potentially here. That maybe slowed him up for a little bit through the Forest S's.
Talk about some leaders being slowed up. Patrick Fleming, he's not really mixing it up at the front of GT3 right now, but that's because he made a stop on lap 22, whereas a lot of the other GT3 drivers haven't made their third stop yet. But Fleming had a close call with David Tejeda last lap, and now you can see he's finally got by him. Those two haven't been... it hasn't been the cleanest battle between them, and I'm sure Fleming's not appreciating it, considering the fact he's made an extra stop than Tejeda.
Tejeda moving to the inside of Fleming down the Mulsanne straight. Side by side.
I think it's not helping that Tejeda's connection is going in and out.
Looks like Fleming is going to come out on top through the Michelin chicane. So we watch Tejeda grab that draft one more time. Probably the shortest of the straights of the three, split up Mulsanne. Down into Mulsanne corner. He moves to the outside as Fleming defends up towards the kink. Oh, but he disappears once again, comes back just in time, and Fleming is going to be able to hold him off.
Meanwhile, Bradley Haley is into the pits, and as I mentioned a little bit ago, this is the first time all race that Haley's gone 9 laps. Now, I think he's still going to have to make a 4th stop. Well, no, maybe he could stretch his final run, or if he doesn't make a full stop, maybe he wouldn't have to take as much fuel.
And once again, side by side, this is going to be a little bit harder braking for the Indianapolis kink. Oh, he's going to fight him as Fleming holds the outside this time, but he's on the grippier side of the track. He runs wide. Can he finally get it? David Tejeda has a nose in. They're coming up to Ornage. He could offer an opportunity, but he elects not to take it. Fleming stays behind, so move Tejeda up into 4th.
For now, you can see that purple and black machine, though, of Dino Topic coming up there. That could make things start up again.
Even Dino got on the radio, said this is going to be interesting. He knows he's going to approach these guys up into the Porsche curves, maybe a bit of side by side, but Fleming brakes very early to let him through.
Yeah, Tejeda didn't offer Topic as much track there, and it allowed him to build up a bit of a gap over Fleming, but Fleming will close it down again, because once again Fleming's made an extra stop. Really, Tejeda's a bit of an inconvenience for him right now. I wonder if Tejeda's battling so hard, because maybe Tejeda's, I think he's been going longer, and now he finally pits. So that takes that away. I was wondering if he could 3-stop, but if he's pitting on lap 25, and Fleming spins.
Oh, mercy.
And we've seen this before. I'm trying to remember which driver we saw nose it hard into the left side wall here on the Ford chicane. We're going to see it on the replay. just cannot hold on to the brakes, and the rear comes around.
Yeah, I was wondering if Tejada was racing him so hard because he was thinking of three-stopping, but now that he's come in on lap 25 for the GT3s, that's not going to be the case. He's going to have to pit again.
Oh, and he tows. He tows from the front straight, which means that is going to be a long, long wait for Patrick Fleming for Itasha Motorsports.
And he's already taken a free repair.
Oh, disappointment. David Sockrider, meanwhile, you see on screen, coming in from 5th for his pit stop. And I'm pretty certain he's going to have one more with 38 minutes left on the clock.
Looking at that Stephen McGarvey battle there, it's down to 2 seconds now.
Interestingly, Jason Girard, who had it down to 13 seconds at one point between himself and Tinsey, had it go back up to 15, has only got it back down to 14 seconds. Yeah, it looks like Fleming has disconnected. Fleming's day is done.
Sheldon Wolofin retires from the race. He's been having a quiet race, not really sure why that is.
Going back to see if we can find if he had an issue. He's stationary in the pits for a long, long time. This will be a shame after he's been so consistent. Granted, well, I say that I have to remind myself that he's not going to get points for this one, so his retirement doesn't matter. I don't think he went back out on track, I'm seeing. I think he must have reconnected and never returned to the pavement.
Once again, Laura Costa stays out at the completion of lap 26 for the GT3s. Next time around will be lap 27, following the 9 times table of pitting on lap 9, 18, 27, and the checkered flag should fall for the GT3s on lap 36.
Well, Bill, you were wanting to watch this battle earlier, but Troy Schuster is now within a second of Stephen McGarvey. He's hunted him down.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be much of a battle once Troy gets there. Garvey on old rubber, I don't know is going to have a lot for him.
Well, and you'd think that McGarvey would have to get tires for this last stint. Especially with how far he's dropped back.
Yeah, that's going to be, they're going to come in one more time, and Schuster probably will not need to get tires. McGarvey's going to have to.
Closing in down the Mulsanne straight. Coming up to the Mulsanne corner. We ride on board with Schuster, who has led most of this race, has only relinquished it in GT1 over to McGarvey after this pit stop issue. Ooh, bit of a... Is this a battle ahead of them, actually, with Tejada and Sockrider?
Well, Sockrider's running in 5th, actually, in the GT1s. Tejada is a different class.
Yeah, so that's... I saw Sockrider go a little bit off, wasn't sure if there was some drama happening there. Sockrider gets lapped by McGarvey. Next up is going to be Schuster, but I don't think he's going to get him by the time they get to Indianapolis. No, he's got a hold behind. Oh, sneaks on through to the inside. Tejada, I'm not sure if that was intentional or not. Pulls over and lets him through. So does the car in their own class of Sockrider.
So now there's nobody in front of them for quite a while. They can settle this mano y mano.
And that'll be Sheldon Rosenbaum, the next one up. Right on board with McGarvey, looking back over his right rear tire. That gap between himself and Schuster still holds at about a second. The lap traffic put the battle on pause just momentarily as they come out of the Porsche curves from karting through Maison Blanche. And Schuster is not gaining, actually. He lost about 0.3 there. Loses more time, has a horrible time through the Ford chicane. It's almost looking like Schuster's struggling a little bit. He was at 1.3 seconds a bit ago, now almost up to 2 seconds behind. Billy Smith, in the same class from 3rd place, comes on into his pit stall. Bill, this seems like it's right on the cusp here.
34 minutes to race. Yeah, it depends on where it falls. It's so long around Le Mans. I think he could get there. Billy Smith knows what he's doing. Unless he actually had to come in, unless he had no option.
We won't know until we talk to him or until we get to the final laps.
Lauro Costa coming into the pits. And, of course, the significant thing here is going to be how far will he be behind Bradley Haley when he comes out? And what will Haley do? Will he try and save fuel on track? Or will he try and make a forced stop and come out ahead of Costa? I don't think it'll work. He'll have to build up a pretty big lead. But Bill brings up another good point. Le Mans is long. Depending on when the white flag falls, who knows if this race could go an extra lap and everyone anticipates, and Costa might have to make a forced stop.
This is the kind of a track you can win by actually going slower if fuel's an issue.
And Jimbo Pfeiffer on screen, I just was watching that, has a scary moment coming up to the back of Bradley Haley.
And Costa's coming out of a pits and Haley... Oh dear, Ulmer's in the wall.
Is this in the Porsche curves once again? Oh, rear just starts to come around and there's no saving it once it's that far sideways. Wow. Big hit for him, unfortunately.
Meanwhile, GT3, Costa has come out of a pits ahead of Haley, the opposite of what I would have expected, and I think it's because Haley took tyres on these final stop whereas Costa didn't. The problem here, though, I'm sure Costa's leading this race without having to make another stop, whereas Haley's in second and I think does have to pit again.
So 32 minutes left on the clock for Costa. He's won 3 in a row before this round. This could tally up another win, though it will not feed him points. Bill, did you study French at all? Do you actually know French?
I do not, but...
okay. You were making some comments in our chat. I wasn't sure if that was accurate.
The fromage is off the quiche.
We're now into the final half hour of this race. For some drivers, this is going to be a long half hour, depending on where their strategy has stuck them. They're starting to get a better picture of where it's going to leave them, if it worked, if it didn't. Others, it's still a huge question mark. One driver that I think is appreciating the craziness going on is Dino Topic, who had a disconnect at the very start and looked like being 2 laps down from the leaders. He was never going to get back into this race. But currently, he is running 7th. And actually, getting close to Mark Wilson, too.
All right, Tinsey is in.
Gerard retakes the overall lead.
Now,
by the way, after all those disconnections, Joe, just 21 cars left running on this circuit.
I think Tinsey had to either miss his stall. I thought I saw him reverse once again. He may have had further fuel issues. Now, is he going to go up on the jacks as well? No, it looks like he did not. So he did not take tires once again.
He was able to go 7 laps. He went 1 shorter the first one. That's the one that could haunt him.
Girard should be good to go to the end, even if he stops this next lap. My real question is, if he takes tires, it's going to set him even farther back. If he doesn't take tires, they're both going to be on older tires, although Girard's will still be slightly newer. But is that, at this point when they've had this much wear, will it be different enough that he can chase down Tinsley?
Guys, Mark Schindel, who have been running in the top 5 in HPD, has retired from the race.
Now, did he have issues, or did he just elect to take an early shower? Oh, and we got a GT1 battle for the lead. Around the outside, Stephen McGarvey trying to defend from Schuster. They're side by side through the corner. It's going to be a drag race down to Indianapolis.
Fight it out, boys. There's no points on the line.
I think that's what Billy Smith is shouting at them from inside his cockpit. Still side by side. Nobody is giving up. McGarvey's going to have the inside into the kink, but it's going to switch to the outside once they hit the left-hander of Indianapolis. A little bit more timid on the brakes. It goes to Troy Schuster. He takes the apex. Troy Schuster takes the lead.
And here comes the leader in the Jeep prototypes coming through.
And points leader.
Or trying to.
I believe points leader in the prototypes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
By a mere 4 points over Robert Tinsley. And I guarantee you one thing, Bill. Between Tinsley and Girard, I think this one is down to pride on which of them wins here.
Yeah, making maybe a little statement when we roll around at the end of the season, we do it again. I beat you the first time, I'll do it again.
Give you a couple of updates here. Schindel, Joe, as you said, did take an early shower. He just pulled into the pits and pulled off to the side and retired from the race. Meanwhile, Bradley Haley, wondering what his strategy will be at the end of the race. He did come in to make a forced stop, so he's done that now. And I think Laura Costa is going to remain unchallenged up front in GT3.
Girard has come into the pits as well. That should mean that unless Daniel Gralti comes in for his stop, he will take the lead, but I expect Gralti to come in. He's coming up to it now, and yes, he does. He elects to pit. So, Tinsley, is he going to get the lead back? He comes up to the Ford chicane. He's got a little bit of traffic in the form of David Tejada. That slows him down just a little bit. Jason Girard is still stationary. They reach the front stretch. Come across the line. Girard still not moving. Tinsley crosses across, and he's going to retake the lead. Girard is coming out now. He's past the cones. What's the gap going to be?
Going to be considerable.
I would think it's less than what it was. It's about 6.5 seconds, it looks like. So I think Girard made some time. As Tinsley comes around Tertre Rouge, the ever-important corner to get the power down on this long backstretch, flat to the floor. "25 minutes left to go on the clock now."
Okay, look, you put GSRC on your wing and you get up to 5th position. You get a little love from the commentators. Let's go ahead and look at David Sockrider, currently racing in, I believe, 5th in class right now. Having a nice run. Pretty paint scheme on the car. 3 laps down. Started in 22nd position, up to 14th overall.
A very Italian paint scheme on a very British car, we should say.
Yes, it is.
Hey, tell you what, the driver who appreciates more drivers electing, including Mark Schindel, electing to just retire for whatever reason. Dino Topic, for a while, was into the top 5. He slipped down to 6 now that he's had to take his pit stop, but he's coming out now. Well, unfortunately, I think, Bill, you're going to get a little bit of your fromage, because we've got John Ulmer, who has joined us after his retirement from this race. Let's bring him in and talk about how his race went. Bill?
John, it was, I don't know where to start. I guess we'll start at the beginning. You had a rough start, and then let's go back. Let's pretend it was a real race. Talk to us about the beginning of it.
John, you got a copy?
Oh, yeah, got you.
There we go. Now we got it.
Yeah, I had a slowdown penalty, and so I was going to wait till after the chicane so I could use Alex's draft, but he didn't go the direction I was hoping he was going to go coming off of it, and kind of pushed me on the back, and then I didn't slow down quick enough to avoid getting the stop and go penalty, and that was pretty much just playing recovery after that.
So that was the bad news, and then the racing gods decided to give you a little bit of luck here, and we had although I'm sure you're not happy to see it, in the long run it's going to help you out a bit.
Yeah, it was 15 or 16 guys got dropped. So yeah, there's something going on there for that to happen. So kind of made the decision that we're going to have to rerun this race at the end of the season, because it's just, that many guys. It's not fair to do that to them. And I mean, it was benefiting me because I was going to end up being fourth, but I was like, nah, this is not worth doing.
Well, it was, you were fast. You had a little bit of issues there. Did you learn anything? You got a little bit of knowledge then, I guess, for the end of the season when we come back here?
Yeah, don't hit things.
And learn how to serve those penalties when you're supposed to. That's the lesson learned.
Oh, yeah, big time. And stay off the curbs in the forward chicane. They hurt this car pretty bad. So.
All right, John. Well, we appreciate you coming in and talk to us. We'll see you the rest of the way, and then one more. Let's put one more at the tail end of this, baby.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
John Big Cheese Ulmer. Gonna call it a day.
We see our leader in the GT3's Lauro Costa has been pretty much unchallenged for much of this race, and looks like that's going to be it to the end unless he makes a serious mistake. You can see 37 seconds over Bradley Haley. I'll tell you what, though, we've had a significant development in the GT1 lead. Troy Schuster has come in for a splash and dash.
Yeah, he was in for about 23 seconds, so that's about a normal time.
And do we expect Stephen McGarvey to come in for the same splash and dash, or is he good to go to the end?
I think he's got to come in as well. It's just a matter of when.
So there you see the Aston Martin driver working his way down the Mulsanne straight, braking heavily for that Mulsanne corner. And one interesting thing I found out about that corner, Bill, is that little kink on the entry wasn't always there. They built that roundabout after they started this race. So it used to be just a straight shot down to there. And
I would have liked that a lot better.
Well, I sure it made it interesting trying to find your brake marker, with probably making it much closer to the apex. But as we ride on board with our leader in the GT1s, working through another tricky corner into Indianapolis. Ooh, big bobble on the exit there, though.
Joe, you mentioned about the GT3 field, and I agree with you that I think we're not going to see a whole lot of passing in that class before the checkered flag falls. But I do want to give a shout out to the driver who right now looks like he'll finish in third position, and that is Sheldon Rosenbaum in the GT3 class. He started in 7th place. He moved his way up to 6th before the first round of stops, but then he began to fade back actually before the first round of stops. I think he dropped back to 8th or so, but then we saw all the trouble for the drivers, for Patrick Fleming, for Paul Darling, for Robert Trackman, and he's just kept on trucking and has moved up into 3rd place. Once again, looks like another solid finish here today for Rosenbaum. Unfortunately, as we mentioned, it's not going to mean a whole lot for him in the points.
Speaking of meetings, I'm wondering what the meaning is of the 2-second fluctuation we keep getting with Gerard and Tinsey. Remember back when they were about 15 seconds apart, it seemed like 2 seconds would move back and forth between them. Now we're seeing that here with when he came out of the pits. It was 6 seconds. It's gone down as low as about 4, and now it's stuck at about 5 between them.
So with Stephen McGarvey in the pits there.
There's our answer to that. So maybe we can pick up Troy Schuster, see where he is. Just coming up to the Ford chicane right now.
Corvette having to navigate them one more time. You can see pretty close predictions. We're on lap 35 for these GT1s. Stephen McGarvey is going, but he's in the middle of the pit straight. He's got a long way up to the front, so as Troy Schuster has the momentum down the front stretch, he is going to squeeze on by.
A little more frustrating for the GT1s and the GT3s as their pit box is farther back in pit lane. When the prototypes get rolling, they get to the end of pit lane a lot faster.
Absolutely. But everybody has to go down the same length of pit lane in the end. Stephen McGarvey not too far behind, about 2-second gap between Schuster and Stephen. I think this is our closest fight for the lead of the 3 classes.
Now, neither driver changed tires that time, but remember, this is McGarvey's 3rd stint on this rubber, I believe, if I have my notes right, so Schuster should be in pretty good position.
Now, I wonder if we could go on board with Gerard. He's got it back down to 4 seconds once again, and I noticed coming through the chicane, he's looking fairly close. Yeah, you can see that blue dot in the spec. That is Bob the Blade ahead of him.
And look at the time in the bottom left corner of the screen. As you mentioned, Joe, it was 4.8 seconds at the line. Now only 3.9 seconds using dynamic timing. 3.7 seconds through the hairpin. Gerard is coming.
Let's see if he can keep this up, though. Remember, I was saying they have fluctuated back and forth earlier on. 17 minutes left on the clock will give them 3.5 minutes a lap. Is that about 4 or 5 laps to go?
We'll be able to tell better at the exact point Tinsey crosses the line. I'll start doing some math.
It's now down, or for a while it was down to 3.6. I think Jason's hustling.
We joke about our math skill here on GSRC, but really it is impressive when Sam starts to get out the figures here. He does a pretty good job of nailing this one.
I got a 5 on my AP calculus exam. That is the first time I have said that ever since I took the exam.
I'm glad it's you doing it and not me then, because I opted out of as much math as I could through college. But anyways, Robert Tinsey, the Michigander, being chased by the New York driver, of Jason Gerard. It's holding steady, just about between 3.8 and 3.6 as they come to the line, although Tinsey catching some traffic in the form of Kevin Santana. Is he going to get him at the right place? He squeezes by on the Dunlop corner, and that takes care of it. So at the line, it was about 15 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock, Sam.
Yep, doing it now.
So while Sam crunches the numbers, I guess Simon and Poindexter have taken a vacation for today, somewhere off on the beaches of France.
Okay. Shoot.
Whoa, and Santana with a big moment right in front of Gerard.
I've almost got to wonder if Santana was one of the drivers called out with the internet woes, because we remember, as we see what happened to him here, this ends off a frustrating day for him. He'd had a really good start, was carving his way through the field, had to serve an extra stop on the first round of stops, not entirely sure why, but obviously some kind of issue there, and then he never really got back up to the front.
I can confirm Santana did have a disconnect in that group, so he was one that suffered from it. Meanwhile, Mark Wilson from 5th place in the prototypes. Dino Topic is catching him now. Dino might actually get a top 5 here. Billy Smith also in.
Okay, when Tinsey crosses the line this time by, it will be 4 laps to go. He's at 5 laps to go right now.
All right.
And let's see how exact my math is. If at the white flag, there will be 1 minute and 28 seconds left to go.
He needs to slow down. I don't think he can get there. I think when we had Benefield in here, I think we're right. I think he's going to be 1 short.
I mean, you can't really slow down much, though, Bill. It's 3.5 seconds the gap.
Well, he's going to have to slow down on the track, or he's going to have to slow down in the pit box.
I was going to say he could slow down and let Gerard buy to save fuel behind him, but that might be too little too late.
Go for it. There's no points anyway. Keep going, and if you run out of gas,
stay out there. That's darn right. That boy, Sam.
All right, so question marks once again on the fuel numbers for our prototypes, leaving us guessing all the way to the end. In the GT1s, though, Schuster leads by about 1.5 seconds. That has not changed since the last pit stop for McGarvey.
McGarvey doing a great job of hanging in there. We look at Schuster right now. He's got to work on... Oh, I love getting around that fluorescent blue car of Sheldon Rosenbaum.
Easy pass with the power of the GT1s down these long straights. And you know what's exciting me, Bill, is the GT1s have been very popular here at Le Mans when series run various classes and whatnot, but the GTE cars are coming with the new Ford GT to replace this one, and as well as the Ferrari 488.
Ford and Ferrari, that's the way it should be.
Oh, you should see the forums. The arguments have erupted already.
When does a Ferrari come out, Joe? I missed that.
Supposedly this build.
All right. Get me into a GT car, yeah.
I figured that'd make you happy, Sam.
One thing that's not making Lauro Costa happy, Joe, well, first thing is that his win might not count in the points, but he's far ahead of Robert Tinsey on track. Tinsey is the next car behind him, but it's quite far behind him. If Lauro Costa stays in front of Tinsey, he's going to have to go to the lap 37. Mind you, Haley is... I'm sorry, I'm trying to calculate this. Haley is already a lap behind Tinsey. So even if Costa did run out of fuel on the final lap, if he takes the white flag ahead of Tinsey, it wouldn't matter anyway. He would be scored ahead of Haley at the finish. Never mind.
Yeah, I understand that. I do, and I know where you come from. It just seems wrong to me that you can run out of gas and still win the race. I understand.
Well, they don't have the real-world Le Mans rule where you have to cross the line within a certain amount of time on the last lap, so...
And the other thing is that Tinsey could get by Costa, and then Costa only has to go the lap 36, and he can do that on fuel.
You're right, Joe. I forgot about that rule. That's right.
Yeah, and either way, Costa should have this in the bag unless disaster strikes. He's been pretty flawless as of recent.
And if he didn't have enough fuel to make it the lap 36, he could probably still pit and get out in front of Haley, to be honest.
36 seconds I last saw? 39 seconds. It'd be awful tight. I wouldn't want to risk that if I were Costa.
Sheldon Rosenbaum pits from 3rd in GT3 as Jumbo Pfeiffer. Actually, Pfeiffer pitting from 4th in prototype might cost him a couple positions there.
Yeah, Topic has already gone by, so it cost him at least 1. 2, because Mark Wilson has gone through, and in fact, Wilson was in a battle with Topic, but he has to relinquish the position. Fortunately for Dino, he is an entire lap down from Daniel Peralti, so Daniel will need to wreck pretty much from here to the end somewhere for Dino to actually get on the podium. Still a 4th place drive for Dino Topic after losing 2 laps at the very start is impressive.
Pfeiffer's still in the pits. This is a long stop considering he's only got to make about a few more laps.
I wonder if Pfeiffer is also deciding to end his race here. And you see the Gulf liveried car with 9 minutes to go. Doesn't seem to be going anywhere, so Dino Topic, as we watch the Mama Jean racing machine, trying to hold off Mark Wilson, who probably wants that 4th place back. And in fact, he's moving to the inside as they come down to the Michelin chicane.
Side by side, get it settled out, boys.
We're getting a little bit close down towards the braking. Now they separate, and Dino is fighting back. Oh, he's got to cut the chicane. This is going to slow him down significantly, although Mark Wilson also going through the corner quite slow.
They may both have one to pick.
No, Mark was well to the outside. I think he's good, but Dino's not slowing down yet. This is interesting. Now he's lifting a little bit. Wow, he must have let off the gas just perfectly to keep him back. Sorry, Sam.
Yeah, the gap between the two leaders, 3.1 seconds at the line. That time by, they only have 3 laps left to go now.
He's going to have to get him by a second a lap, and even still, that won't guarantee him that he can get by.
My whole speech about Costa having to watch his fuel was going out the window because he will go a lap down the Tinsy here.
There you can see him going by on the Mulsanne. HPD having an easy time getting by the GT3 with the high-end speed of these prototypes. And you can see in the back of your screen that is Gerard trying to hunt him down. It's gotten down to 2.7 seconds, between 2.6 seconds now.
Yeah, is Gerard going to get held up here? No, the problem is it wasn't perfect timing for Gerard because he wasn't able to get a run on Costa.
And while that gap is going down, the gap between first and second of the GT1s is going up. Stephen McGarvey now 2.5 seconds back from Troy Schuster.
Yeah, McGarvey out there racing on the rims, basically, right now. Those tires are so used up. Still doing a pretty good job, though, hanging on the back of his car.
Clock is ticking down. If you're just joining us, you're watching the dying stages of the 2.4 hours of Le Mans for the Autobahn Motorcar Group Sports Car Challenge here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We expected more cars out here for the finish, but it wasn't attrition. It wasn't accidents that took so many out. It was connection problems that removed a number of cars. We understand the number is about 15 or 16 from the service mid-race. The drivers are no longer racing for points as this race has been deemed unofficial. However, they will do a replacement race later on in the season. They haven't decided when yet.
6 drivers left in HPD, 5 drivers left in GT1 and 6 left in GT3. The drivers 5th and 6th in GT3 are the 2 core GT drivers that will persevere to make it to the checkered flag here, Dave Hill and Matt Owens.
Looking at Dave Hill right there. Love that Ford.
Yeah, even though that's Bradley Haley ahead of him, he's a lap ahead of him.
A significant difference. Getting a lap on someone here at Le Mans takes a lot longer than at the other tracks these drivers tend to run at in this series.
You said a second a lap between Tinsy and Gerard, Joe. It happened that lap. Only 2.2 seconds as they come to 2 laps left to go.
How much is Robert Tinsy sweating bullets? Is he getting nervous inside the cockpit? Is he even watching the gap between himself and Gerard? They come across the line. 5 minutes to go now.
Gerard has to realize that Tinsy intended to lap early. I wonder if he knows. I wonder if he thinks he has to catch him or if he feels comfortable.
Here's the thing. If he can't make it, he has to come in next time by, because I believe that should be 1 lap to go. next time by.
Yeah, it's going to be the white flag when they come across the line this time. My question, though, is, Joe and Bill, what you got to lose? It's not a points race.
There's no way Tinsley's coming in here, yeah.
We'll know when the car coughs and sputters. Tinsley hoping he got his numbers right. He probably has a better idea than we do whether he did or not.
You don't need to go there, but what's Topage got around Wilson? He was able to put him well behind. Dino running in fourth. A lesson to all you kids out there. If something goes wrong to you, just keep trying and then hope that something goes wrong to everybody else.
That's why we created the Dory Award here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. Drivers who don't give up get rewards in the end. Stephen McGarvey hasn't been giving up. He's trying to chase down Schuster, but unfortunately it is not swinging his way. Nearly 3 seconds between himself and Troy.
Does Stephen have an internet issues, or is... No, he seems to be pretty solid there. My time in the scoring, his name is blinking in and out, like he's blinking in and out the server, but you're right on board here. It's looking good for a second place finish.
That would be the cruelest of cruelties if you actually decide to go ahead and finish a race that doesn't count and then you get disconnected at the very end.
I've seen stuff like that happen as well. It is heartbreaking.
Gerard hasn't gained as much on Tinsley this lap. He's still 1.8 seconds back. That being said, I think Gerard is better in the closing turns of a lap, which they're approaching right now.
He'll also get the draft if he can get within probably, about a second to help him close in on the back of Tinsley. So he doesn't necessarily have to be right on top of him if he's got some of the long straights left. Question is, where is he going to catch him, and will he catch him?
Of course, that's all he'll have is a draft, no DRS or anything, and I keep getting a vision in my head of Fernando Alonso punching all these buttons on these IndyCar steering wheel trying to activate that. But as they come to take a white flag here, I guess the big talk is going to be fuel. It looks like Tennessee's got the race wrapped up otherwise.
Well, there's one...
Go ahead, Joe.
If there's one thing we've learned about Autobahn, never...
He says he's pitting in, Joe.
Oh. And Gerard stays out. Well,
why don't you come on in with me, Jason, says Robert Tinsley.
Said the spider to the fly, but no, looks like Gerard is going to stay out, and this is going to go to him. And in fact, Tinsley doesn't have to worry about Gralty, who's still a minute back. That settles, or should settle, the race for the lead overall here at Le Mans. And in fact, it's starting to stretch farther and farther apart for GT1s as well, with Troy Schuster now 3 seconds over Stephen McGarvey.
Laura Costa looking set for the GT3 win as well. He'll cross the line before Troy Schuster in GT1 due to their positioning on the track.
Laura Costa, he's fast, he can save fuel, and type, all at the same time. He's one talented guy.
He's the Scott Dixon of the Autobahn series, apparently.
No, he's kept on the ground.
As the clock ticks its way down, 20 seconds left to go. Gerard's on the backstretch now, on the home run. He hasn't won one in a while. Unfortunately, this is only going to be an emotional victory. A moral victory, if you will. Last win for Gerard, all the way back at Sebring in round 4, believe it or not. 4th at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, 3rd at Watkins Glen, 2nd at Monza, and then another 3rd at Imola.
I am concerned, Joe, if there's some drivers, particularly front runners, who have text and voice chat turned off during a race who don't know that this isn't official.
Oh, I'm sure there's chatter going on in the thread on iRacing. These drivers are very chatty, we shall say, on that thread. I believe last season, didn't they make it up to over 300 posts over the course of the season?
And proud of it.
Very proud they were. Coming up to Indianapolis for the final time for Jason Girard. Playing it safe, keeping the car steady, under braking, not trying to push the limits of it. No reason, and throw it away with a 30-second lead this late on.
I wonder how many of those 300 posts you mentioned on the forum, Joe, were done by Laura Costa when he was driving.
Not sure. I don't think he was posted on the forum while driving, necessarily.
Wouldn't put it past him.
Oh, what talent that is. Jason Girard through bridge, now into karting of the Porsche curves. Hugging the right side, the slowest of the Porsche curves, the left-hander, keeps it on the track, doesn't get the slowdown penalty. Through Maison Blanche, up to the Ford chicane for one final time. It won't count for points, but it's got to count for his ego. Jason Girard comes through the Ford chicane and takes the win here at Le Mans.
Meanwhile in GT3, it's Lauro Costa who's still got a little ways to go, but he has got a big gap behind him ahead of Bradley Haley. He's actually extended at the 42 seconds now. He was able to stretch his fuel to 9 laps every single run, whereas every other driver, to my knowledge, in GT3 had at least one stint of just 8 laps. Unfortunately for Lauro Costa, this will not count as a 4th official win because this race is not official. However, I'm sure he has learned a lot today that he'll hope to bring back at the end of the season when the series returns to Le Mans, and hopefully for him get another double points win finish at the Circuit de la Sarthe that could help him win the championship. Well, I'll tell you, he has a healthy lead now anyhow. Just a couple of turns left to go for the Brazilian, the driver of a number 4 Mercedes, as he comes through these last couple of chicanes. He won't be, and he's actually going to finish in the pits. I assume this will count. He's going to Michael Schumacher this.
Didn't quite have enough fuel for the end. Strategy wound up working anyways, as Lauro Costa takes the win and weaves through the pits. All right. Interesting method there for the Brazilian here in the GT3 class. Win for him. Troy Schuster going to be the last one as he comes out of the Porsche curve soon here. This one a little bit closer, but he did extend his gap over Stephen McGarvey. McGarvey tried valiantly, throw whatever he could at Troy Schuster to see if he can pry the win out of him, but it was not to be. As he comes up to the Ford chicane, Troy Schuster through the final left and the right, coming across the line. He's going to take the win at Le Mans. And with that, that's all 3 classes over. We're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Stick around because we're going to have the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. And of course, on screen, we're going to have all of the races here upcoming on the Global Sim Racing channel. Welcome back to the Circuit de la Sarthe. We just watched the 2.4 hours of Le Mans here for the Autobahn Motorcar Group Sportscar Challenge, which unfortunately will not count as an official round this season. They will rehold the race due to some technical issues that removed multiple drivers from the race. That said, let's go through the order anyways, because Jason Girard took a moral victory here today, taking the win overall, with Robert Tinsley coming home in second after he could not make it to the end without a splash and dash. Daniel Gralti, how about that podium for Daniel? Finished a minute behind our leader, however, and Dino Topic with a recovery run coming home into fourth. Mark Wilson finished in fifth, and the last of our prototypes, because of so many drivers dropping out, was Jimbo Pfeiffer finishing in sixth. Bill?
You know, he wasn't doing so well in the Americas, but when we went over to Europe, Troy Schuster's feeling a little bit better with a win at Monza, now one here at Le Mans. He gets the win today ahead of Stephen McGarvey. Billy Smith would have won it and made me a wise man if it would have counted, but once the points didn't count, he just kind of settled for third. Leif Peterson takes fourth. David Sockrider, fifth in class. I'm going to jump down here, leave that overlay up, director. Dave Hill and Matt Damon go sixth and seventh in class. Sam, why don't you go back to Laura Costa? It wasn't Matt Damon. How about Matt Owens? Matt Damon, it was busy making a movie. It is Matt Owens. Sorry about that. Let's go to give it to Sam.
Yeah, the colours are throwing you off there a bit, Bill. Dave Hill and Matt Owens actually in Ford GTs in the GT3 class, finishing fifth and sixth behind the four Mercedes of Laura Costa, Bradley Haley, Sheldon Rosenbaum and David Tejeda. Now we get to all the cars that retired, and usually I do all these because there's like 5 or 10 of them, but there's about 20 here, so let's just read them off. Mark Schindel, John Ulmer, Kevin Santana, Chris Pence, Patrick Fleming, Brandon Postman, Paul Darlin, Alex Simonik, Sheldon Voloshin, Ryan Huff, Daniel Benefield, Sean Rees, Lionel Dupet, Paul Lindsay, Miguel Meyer, Michael Reedy, Armando Edwards, Wojciech, Jim McInnes, Robert Jackman, and Carter Kundina.
Take a breath, Sam. Take a rest. We'll give you a while before we make you do an interview.
He didn't do the last name on Wojciech. That's not fair. You guys.
That's intentional.
I know. It's just wrong, though. All right.
All right. We got some interviews to do. First up, looks like we'll start with our winner in the prototypes, Jason Girard, and see how things went from his perspective. Jason, let's start off with the race start. You had the slowdown penalty. How did you mentally recover from what you probably knew was going to hurt pretty bad being on that first lap?
Yeah, I lost about 6 seconds as a result of that. So I flaked out a little bit just because I got the black flag for passing the pace car, which started making me think that the race was pretty much over already. But I pretty much just put my head down at that point and just tried to refocus and just take one car at a time and just work my way up through there.
And the next thing for you was once you had caught up to Tinsley, it turned out you and he had different pit strategies. Was that something that you did intentionally, try to do an alternate strategy to him to try and see if you could outrun him that way? Or did you plan that before you knew what he was doing?
Absolutely not. I knew the race was going to go 8 laps times 5, and I knew the minute Tinsley and Simonik decided to pit on lap 7 that I'd pretty much won the race as long as I could finish, come up to second place. So at that point, the race was won for me, and I just tried to put the pressure on there so that I couldn't save fuel, and thankfully it all worked out the way I thought it was going to.
And of course, have to talk about the elephant in the room. With this race not counting and you guys doing a makeup race at the same track later on, are you disappointed that the win doesn't count, or does this give you confidence going into the next one that you can do it again?
We'll see. I mean, we'll see what the tire model, what iRacing does with the tire model next patch. I hope they at least make some changes. I think the tires just don't wear enough, if I'm honest with you. But I'm a little bit disappointed because, like I said, once lap 7 hit, I knew the race was mine. I knew I won it, but I was fast. I made a few mental mistakes. Other people made a few mental mistakes. So at the end of the day, I guess you could say it all equalized out. And by the time final race comes around, everybody's going to know what to do and not make those mistakes. So it should be very interesting.
Should certainly be a close race. That was Jason Girard, our winner here in the prototypes and overall today at Le Mans. will not take points home for it, though. Let's talk to our winner in the GT1s. Bill has got Troy Schuster, who took his second win of the season.
Troy, congratulations on the win. I guess that's the good news. The bad news is it's not going to count. I don't want to talk so much about the race because they're thrown away unless there's something you really want to talk to. I want to talk more about your career and what's been going on this season. You know, you've been a fan favorite ever since we remember you battling back with David Binkley back a couple seasons ago. This season hasn't gone as well for you. Is it just not as much time you're putting in or competition? What's up?
A little bit of both. I haven't had as much time to be messing around on iRacing as much. And the competition in GT1 this season was pretty stacked. So,
well, then let's talk about what's been going on recently. The first part of the season was kind of grim, but you pick up a win in Monza. You have another good result here today. It's coming around for you, getting used to the car?
Yeah. Still a little bit of complaints about the tires here and there. It's good that they last a lot longer, but they're still just they act really odd. But other than that, yeah, I love this car. It's one of my favorites.
Let's talk about just a little bit about this race because maybe I can learn a bit as it looks like we're going to reschedule it for the end of the season. Pit strategy, tires. What's your thinking on this one? As McGarvey seemed to go forever.
Yeah, I don't think he took tires, and I'm pretty impressed with his pace considering he didn't. But yeah, I took him on the third stint, so second stop or third stop, and then I was able to make up the time on Steven from the extra gap in time that it takes to change him. But I just can't control the car when they start to get that worn. I spin a lot, and it's not worth it. So
when we're coming back here at the end of the year, I'm thinking one tire change for the whole long race.
Yeah, it seemed to do it for me. I still had plenty of tire left even after the end. So,
okay, well, I learned a lot. I'll put these in my notes, and let's hope you have a similar result here when we have a season finale back here in France.
I appreciate it, guys. Take it easy.
Troy Schuster, your, I guess, unofficial winner here today.
We also have our third winner, Lauro Costa, waiting in our interview room. And Sam, I hope you've caught your breath again because you're going to be talking to Laura about what was a dominant win.
Yeah, Laura, I've been getting to talk to you a lot recently with you taking wins here. Congratulations on the win, even though I know, it's unofficial.
Bonsoir, monsieur. Comment ça va? Yeah, no points. It's okay. I raced for the race, for the fun of the race, and it felt like this race length and the fuel limit was made for GT3. We were really in a tight strategy for the race, so it was really fun because of that.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, you were able to go 9 laps every single stint, whereas it seemed all of your competitors were only able to go, well, some of them made it 9 laps, but most of the time they were just making it 8 laps. Were you doing anything special to save fuel?
Yeah, I was. When you are doing a fuel strategy race, you need to commit from lap 1. I would say from before the race, my setup was made to not burn a lot of fuel. The way I was driving was to not burn a lot of fuel, like not wasting speed on the corners, trying to keep the momentum and not have to use too much throttle. It's just about that, not use the throttle all the time, just be nice with the car, because it's not easy to make 9 laps. You need to burn 8 liters per lap to be able to run 9 laps, and if you just drive flat out, you burn like 8.3 liters. So you need to save almost half a liter every lap just to stay in the target. So you need to be aware of that all the time.
During the race, we saw a lot of attrition, I would say, in GT3. I mean, obviously, you had the big issue during the middle of a race where a lot of drivers disconnected, but we also saw drivers wrecking on pit entry, wrecking in the final turn. How tricky is this car to race around the Circuit de la Sarthe?
Well, the track conditions were very good for us. It was cold track, so there was more grip than normal. I guess if you're running minimal wing on the Mercedes, it's really loose, and the pit entry is a little tricky. But since I was not driving 100% of the car, I never felt like I was in danger of wrecking. But I can see if you are running without any downforce at all, and you need to push, you're gonna have a hard time at this track, because you cannot afford to have more downforce because of the long straight. So it's a bit like Monza. You just need to deal with the lack of downforce and hope for the best.
Well, congratulations on your win, Lauro. We'll see if you can do it again at the end of the season.
Yeah, I hope to be here after the last race and have another interview and get points next time.
That was our GT3 winner, Lauro Costa, Joe.
One more quick interview to do. Our fourth place finisher in the prototypes, Dino Topic, had a bit of a scare at the start. Things kind of wound up in his favor, but I'm sure not the way that he would have hoped. Dino, was your issue at the start the same one that the other drivers experienced mid-race?
I don't know. After blue screen of death was it Monza, I kind of panicked, so I just hard restarted the computer because everything just froze. And then I tried contacting John because he was going to forward the session. So I tried every way possible, but I guess it was too late. I was able to pit out behind the GT3s, but then I guess the way iRacing works, I lost a lap. So I gave it everything I had just to gain track position, and then I was gonna talk to the admin, see what they say, but then the whole mess happened. So,
which in a way I assume is a relief. However, your recovery drive brought you all the way up to fourth. Did you ever expect to get the car backed up to that position?
No, not really, because like I said, I was a lap down, but I was not really looking at. I was disregarding that lap down. I was looking at the actual track position. So I saw I was getting close to Mark Wilson, and anything after that would have gotten hard. So him and Jimbo losing the connection, and Alex dropped out, never came back. So that kind of brought them back towards me, and other guy like John, I guess, had his own issues anyway. But I guess it worked out. That last splash and dash for Mark, I thought he was going to end up behind me, so I was like, oh no, I have another second to gain. That took a little bit of effort, but it was good.
Yes, and as we have reiterated to our fans, of course, the points on this race will not count because of the technical issues, and they will hold the other one. Dino, thanks for coming and talking to us, and hopefully they've got that bug fixed by the next race, and hopefully you have a little bit more success.
Hopefully all the fast guys are going to switch to the Ferrari or the Ford.
Oh, we know one driver that'll probably be driving the Ferrari. But that was Dino Topic, our fourth place finisher here today in the prototypes. With that, we're going to close up here at Le Mans. And of course, thanks to the Autobahn Motorcar Group for sponsoring this race, and to John Omer for doing all he does behind the scenes to help organize. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. You can see those listed on your screen. Additional thanks to Eric Ekholm and Casey Lalonde, who also provide music. Their contacts can be found listed on the screen. Thanks to the team today, Bill, Sam, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel and Facebook at /GlobalSimRacingChannel. Next race, we're going across the channel to Silverstone to run the historic layout. That'll be Monday, June 12th at 9:15 p.m. Eastern, back to the normal time for this series. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.